Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Okay. So for those that are in, please send a quick message to your colleagues, to your friends. We are going to be starting in the next 2 minutes. In the next 2 minutes, the session is going to be live. So we are here on Zoom. We are here on YouTube live as well. And we're going to drop that link in the chat section so that we can share it to other participants to join. Good morning, Mercy. Good morning, Banda from Zambia. I think Banda is one of our returning participants. Give me a thumbs up if you are. Yes, I think you are. You have been joining us for a while from Zambia. Welcome to today's soft skills training. So remind everyone that we are now live. Go on social media, tell all your friends on WhatsApp, all your colleagues at work, from school, let them know that we're about to start and they do not want to miss this session. Yes, one of my faves is here. Hello, Bob Ezekwesili. Good morning to you. I see you live. He's always here. He's one of my faves. If you know you want to be my fave, be coming regularly. I will recognize you. Good morning, Lillian. Good morning, good morning. Yes, I saw Lillian yesterday and I'm seeing her again today. You are most welcome. Abigail, I see you. Good morning, Akinwale. We're going to be starting shortly, so remind anybody that is not online yet to quickly get online because we are about to start. So today we have our moderator for today, for those that have just joined us, none other than Engineer Sopriye Hart. Sopriye is a project engineer on one of the Construction Kaiser project sites. She has been with CKL. So, Priya, how many years now?
I'm approaching my 4th year. It's 3 years, 3 months.
3 years, 3 months. Fantastic. And how long have you been in the engineering profession?
11 years, since 2011. So.
Fantastic. I always get very excited when I see female engineers.
Thank you.
But me, I'm engineer HR. I hope you people are heard. Not heard. So Priya, please tell them. Tell them. I'm very proud of my title.
Yes, engineer HR.
Okay, so Priya, over to you, please, so that we can start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sopriye Hart, a civil engineer, as already introduced. I hope you can hear me. First of all, I want to apologize. You'll probably be hearing background noise. It comes with the territory, the job that I do. So we are on site today. I want to welcome us to the second day of the 7th edition of the Kaiser Foundation Soft Skill Training. I would like to know, yesterday was an interesting session. I was there briefly before I got distracted with work. What I would like to know, drop it in the comment section, what struck out for you, what did you listen to yesterday that was very important to you and you'll be taking on in your career? We would like to know so that we know that we're actually reaching out to you. This morning we'll be talking about emotional intelligence. I don't know if our speaker is in the house. I don't know if we'll just go on. Mrs. and I don't know if
she's in the house.
Okay, she's here. Okay.
I'm in the house.
Sorry. Okay, so let's get going. All right. So it's my pleasure to introduce to us today a woman of passion. I read her profile and I was very impressed. We aspire to be I, a female engineer, aspire to have a profile as solid as yours. She's a lady who is very passionate about the less privileged. I read about that. Children education and development, youth empowerment, and what struck me most is the rehabilitation of abused women in society. And then, of course, a marriage counselor. I'm trying to bring happiness to homes. Mrs. Enai was currently is principal consultant of A&E Emmanuel Nigeria Limited, faculty member also of various foundations, just like the one we have here this morning, Kaiser Foundation. She's also a member board of trustees of NGOs for women, which I had already mentioned. Mrs. Enai has a BSc in economics and law and a financial expert. Ma'am, your portfolio is so much. I'm very impressed as a female. I mean, if I can just achieve half of this, I would probably, be excited about it. So Mrs. Enai has actually worked in various banks. She's been working in kind of banks that you and I have been banking in, such as Oceanic Bank, which is now our current Bank. Then we have the current Access Bank, which she worked in the highest capacity. So it's a pleasure to have her here. She's a mother of two and a happily married woman. And there's no other person to bring this emotional intelligence lecture to us this morning. I am very excited about it. I would say this, and I hope I'm permitted to say this. The greatest thing I've learned working in Construction Kaiser is how to manage my emotions. And I believe that if you are a participant of this, you will be better off for it. So it's okay to be it's okay to be good in your field, but it's important to have those soft skills that differentiate you from those that actually know what they are doing. So it's my pleasure to have been part of Kaiser for 3.5 years and to have learned the biggest lesson I've learned is how to manage my emotions. So I'm very excited about this lecture this morning, and I'm going to hand over to you, Ma. I'll be here to take notes and be a better person for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good to be here again. I think this is my fourth time. I really love it. I feel very, very honored to be here. And I think that Kaiser is doing a great work, great work. I wish I had this opportunity when I was much younger. Some things in life called life skills, and they're giving it to you and building you, and it's going to make the journey a lot easier. So I'll go straight into our topic. We're talking about emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? It's a set of fundamental skills that allow you to respond to change and to people. A set of fundamental skills that allow you and I to respond properly, confidently to people and to change. I'll start by telling you a story. And the story is my father's story. At the age of 86, he began to have eye problems. And don't know what's happening to my screen. Should I wait? I don't know.
Can we see the screen?
I can see it now, yes. Thank you for
Okay.
sharing it. Okay. So at the age of 86, he went blind. Let's put it that way. He had surgery and it didn't work, and so he went blind. Now my father was an author, and he spent a lot of time writing and reading. And so it was a big blow to him. And I remember he said to me something that struck me. I realized that I'm old. All this time, you hadn't realized that you were aging. He said, all of a sudden, I realized that I'm an old man. And it didn't take long for him to just go down. By 89, we lost him. Now, that made me think a lot about my own life and the fact that get old, because my father just kept on going. He was a very accomplished person. But I must recognize the fact that one day I will be old. And one day there will be changes in my life. Life might throw me some curves. In fact, life throws you curves every day, every time, So, but there might be some very, very, very tough curves. How prepared will I be for them? how resilient will I be to the changes that life will throw at me? There's the story of a rich man too. This rich man had everything, everybody thought everything you could, he didn't lack for anything. He could go where he wanted, afford whatever he wanted, the kind of thing that we always dream about, that, oh, if only we were wealthy, life would be fine. But this man had a few, the stock market crashed, and so he lost a lot of money, and he committed suicide. And people couldn't understand it. You made the money before. You could easily make it again. It's the same you. Why would you take your life? Emotional intelligence helps us to confidently respond to change as well as to people. And you know, you can't go through this life without people. You need people skills. So this emotional intelligence, as well as your communication, can we go back to this slide? Yes. Can we go back to the slide before that? Yes. So as well as your communication skills are very essential skills for everyone to have. Extremely essential skills. Let's go to the next slide, please. Slide 2. Well, maybe I can just do it myself. Slide 2, please. Who's monitoring it from your end? So, well, we are all going to have a brief introduction to what emotional intelligence is all about. We're all going to talk about what are the needs, what are the things that people think wrongly emotional intelligence refers to. What are the poor performance outcomes that we can expect emotional intelligence to impact us? What 4 areas are we going to expect to see good results? And then what are the 5 components of emotional intelligence? And lastly, we're going to be talking about tips. I shall be giving you tips for emotional mastery. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in a nutshell, I'm going to give you a brief introduction. AI uses data on emotions to solve emotional problems. EI is emotional intelligence. I'm going to be calling it EI because emotional intelligence is a bit of a mouthful. So EI uses data on emotions to solve what kind of problems? Emotional problems. And so you get the benefit of your emotions through emotional intelligence. You know why? Because emotional intelligence doesn't say that oh, this emotion is bad, this is not the kind of emotion I should have. It doesn't deny them. It doesn't fight emotions. It simply acknowledges and validates emotions. And so because of that, you can get the full benefit of your emotions. You can decode emotional signals, threats to you, because you are observing your emotions. You understand your emotions. So when there are threats to you, you can easily decode those emotional signals. Your emotions are your signals that something needs to be addressed. You know, so you can decode threats, you can decode opportunities, you can decode threats and opportunities, and then you can choose to focus on your opportunities. You must recognize that your emotions are actually questions. Questions that are telling you something. So you can ask, what's coming my way? Why do I feel this way? What's coming my way? What is this emotion trying to tell me? With emotional intelligence, you are therefore smarter with your feelings because you use your knowledge of what is going on the inside of you and what is also going on the inside of other people to make better decisions. I'm just giving an overview. You learn to respond rather than react. I'll tell you a story about a friend. She came to work one day and she was so upset. Now she's a very small lady, 4 feet 8 inches tall, really tiny lady. And she was so upset that morning. She was late to work. She said on the way to work, she got stuck in traffic. Anybody who knows Lagos knows that Lagos traffic can be mad. She got stuck in traffic, and in all that, everything was just a mess. She said somebody in a Jeep hit her little car and broke her rear light. And she got out of her car in a rage. She was late, she was tired, she was frustrated, and she got out of her car in a rage and went at this man. And when the man opened the door and came out of his car, my God, he was like a giant to her. He was 6'3". But she said she was so angry that the size and the height of the man didn't even deter her. She began to scream at him, and he just stood there looking at her. And so she said she just went to the boot of her car and said, "Oh, you broke my life, and you're standing there, you're not even apologizing." And she took out her jack and broke the lights of this very expensive Jeep. She said, next thing that happened, this tall man grabbed her by the neck and raised her right up into the air, and her feet were dangling in the air. And she started shouting, "Put me down, put me down, put me down." You know, it was a terrible story of herself, but in the department, we were all in stitches. The word picture, the image that we could see in our mind's eye was something else. And we were all in stitches. But you know what she did? That woman, she reacted. She didn't respond. She reacted to the emotion that she felt, frustration, anger. She didn't stop to think. She just went immediately, and she broke somebody's headlamps that were like 5 times the cost of hers that had been broken. A lot of us react to situations. Emotional intelligence will help us to harness our emotions effectively so that we can effectively navigate through life. It also helps us to gain people's trust. When we need to effect a change, it's very difficult sometimes to adapt to changes. I remember once in our church, they decided to collapse 4 departments into 1 department because they felt that they all had basically the same goals. So people who used to be department heads now became unit heads under 1 person. And some of them couldn't take it. They thought it was a demotion to the left. Sometimes life is like that. If you're not prepared for change, you will not be able to adapt properly to that change. Emotions are central to every decision we make. Every single decision we make. Can you go back, please? We're not here yet. Emotions are central to every single decision. I'm just giving an introduction to we make. So when people tell you, let's be rational, they're actually being irrational because you can't take away emotions from your decisions. Now let's quickly go through what emotional intelligence is not. The myth. Emotional intelligence is not how to be nice to people. It's not being nice to people. It's not being how to get along with everybody. That's what we think. It can do that. That's a part of it. But if you're the kind of person who likes to avoid conflict, just rather put your head in the sand like an ostrich, you know, if you're that kind of person, you just want peace at any cost. It can help you become more direct, clear, and firm. If you're somebody who's blunt, you say, you know, when we say somebody has no filter, just says it as it is, and every time he upsets everybody, you know, is undiplomatic. It can help you to overcome that too. You know, emotional intelligence helps you be more sensitive to the people who you work with, the people who are around you. You know, in the army, they say something. They say, obey before complaint. Obey before complaint. So before you complain, you just obey. But imagine how a lot of the people, of the soldiers feel sometimes because they are not listened to. They don't have a voice. To be a good leader, you must know how your team feels. You must know how your team feels. We had a boss when I was in the bank. He was unmarried. He was over 40 and unmarried. And so time really didn't mean much to him. So we worked a full day in the bank, and then he would call a meeting at 6 o'clock. And by 10 o'clock, he's still talking. He didn't recognize the fact that even though he lived very close to the bank, There were people who didn't have transportation amongst us who lived very far away. So there was a security risk for those ones. I was 8 months pregnant, and he would keep me in that bank until after 10. And I didn't live close. He lived on the island, what we call the island in Lagos. I lived on the mainland. It would take you like an hour to get home if there was traffic. So you can imagine that after half of the time we were not listening, people had tuned off, but he wasn't sensitive, so he couldn't pick up those cues that people had tuned off. Another myth is that emotions make us weak or soft. You know, in Nigeria here, they say something to boys when from young kids. They say, be a man, be a man. Boys don't cry. And I remember I always told people, don't tell my son that. Men cry, boys cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have emotions. Because you see, it now makes them grow up to be adults who cannot express themselves. They can't really tell you how they really feel. When they are going through stuff, they cannot confide in anybody. Suddenly you hear the person has committed suicide. The person is alone, is isolated in his own world. He's in pain. He wants to disappear, get away from the pain, but he doesn't know who to share it with. He doesn't know how to even start to share it. So we need to stop such things. Abigail Luca is putting up her hand. Abigail Luca is putting up her hand. Does she want something? Okay, the transmission is breaking seriously. Yes, even from my own end, and I'm wondering why. Can that be looked at? Can that be looked at, please? They said the transmission is breaking. Okay. Is it better now? It could be the network. Oh dear. Okay. So emotions don't make us weak or soft. Emotional intelligence doesn't make us weak or soft. It helps us, in fact, to be able to communicate better. It makes us courageous. It makes us, I should log out and log in again. Okay, 1 minute. I will need help on that. Log out and log in again. To remove the earpiece. Okay. Can you hear me better now? Can you hear me better? I can't hear you again. I'll have to undo it from there. Sorry. Just can hear me, but I couldn't hear her. Do I even need to log in and log out? It's not the earpiece, it's the network. If she switches off her video, it will be better. Oh, my video. Wow. I like to see people. Okay. Who are you looking at before? This, right? Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so I think you should disconnect your headphones, the earpiece you are using. Disconnect it completely from the system.
Yes. I'm using the generator. That's why I used it. Yes, because of background noise.
Okay, because of background noise. But take it off first. Let us hear. And then know if you need to connect it back on.
Okay. What did you think? I should take off the headphones first. Head them here, see whether I don't need to use it. Take off the headphones now. They can't hear it. They can't hear me. It's breaking.
I can hear you.
It's still breaking as you're talking now. They were the ones telling me it was breaking. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can
It's
hear
clearer
you
now.
Yes, it's
You
clear.
can hear me.
Yes.
Beautiful. Should I go back over what I said before?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying I talked about a rich man very well, ma. Thank you very much. So I talked about a rich man who committed suicide even though he had all the money in the world because life threw some curves at him. And I recognized the fact that, oh, okay, that sometimes you are not ready for changes in your life. I also talked about my father who lost his sight, and he was somebody who liked to write and read, and that impacted so much on him. And he said, suddenly I found that I was an old man. All along, he hadn't realized that he'd just been going on it. He was a man who had achieved a lot, and he didn't realize, he said he hadn't ever thought about old age, getting old, because he was healthy. He had everything going for him. But all of a sudden, he lost his sight. And so I told myself, I would live my life in a more intentional, mindful manner, understanding that sometimes life can throw very terrible, earth-shattering curves at you. How do you respond? Emotional intelligence helps you. You can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Somebody
Yes,
says
we
she
can
can't
hear
hear me. Okay. It helps you to respond
Yes,
to
you can.
change, to be resilient to change. It consists of a range of fundamental skills that allow you to competently respond to people as well as to change. If you have effective communication skills and good emotional intelligence, then you can manage personal and as well as organizational change. You know, emotional intelligence, or EI, uses data on emotions to solve emotional problems. What are emotional problems? How do you build a coalition? How do you build a team? How do you build a strong team? How do you resolve conflict? How do you manage stress? How do you adapt to change? Those are emotional problems. So you get the benefit of emotions because it doesn't deny, EI doesn't deny or fight emotions. It doesn't say it's a bad emotion to have. Dumping it, try and bury it or ignore it. It doesn't do that. It doesn't deny the emotions. It doesn't fight the emotions, you know. It observes the emotions like clouds in the sky, like how you observe clouds in the sky. That's how you observe your emotions under emotional intelligence, and you accept them. Yes, I'm feeling this way. You validate them. So emotional intelligence helps you decode emotional signals, threats, or opportunities, and focus on your opportunities. It's a question. There are questions. Emotions are questions. They're asking you what's coming your way. They're telling you what's coming your way. They're actually questions. And you ask, what's coming my way? Why am I feeling this way? Exactly what is coming my way. With EI, you become smarter with your feelings because you are using your knowledge of what is going on the inside of you, as well as what is going on the inside of other people that you are working with, that you are relating with, to take better decisions. And so you respond rather than react. I talked to you about the little lady who was so upset and frustrated because she was late to work, she was stuck in traffic, and then this man with a huge car hit her little car and broke her rear lights, and how she jumped out of her vehicle and attacked him. because she was angry. There was this flood of angry emotions, and she reacted rather than responded. And she didn't, and she took out her jacket and she broke the lights of a vehicle that was a lot more expensive than her. And you can imagine that. And the man, the tall man, the 6'3" man, lifted her into the air. And her legs were dangling, and she was busy shouting, "Put me down, put me down, put me down, put me down." That's just a case of reacting rather than responding. EI helps us to respond rather than react. It helps us to harness our emotions so that we can effectively navigate through life. When we need to make a change, it helps us to gain people's trust, to bring them on board, to own it along with us, so that they accept the change and we can all run together at the same pace. Emotions, like I said, are central to every single decision that we make. So when people say, let's be rational, that is an irrational statement itself, because there's no decision that you make that doesn't involve your emotions. And I said, let's go through what emotional intelligence is not, but what people feel that it is. I said, emotional intelligence is not being nice. It's not how to get along with people. That's part of it, but that's not the whole of it. It can also help you if you're somebody who likes to avoid conflict. You just, like an ostrich, just bury your head in the sand, forgetting that your boss is out for the whole world to see. Because you see, if you don't resolve conflict, it will rear its head again, and it will be worse. So it will grow. It's an emotion. Anger, for instance, an emotion that will grow louder and louder. You cannot ignore it. You cannot bury it. So it doesn't teach you. So it doesn't. It's not that. Doesn't help you just be nice. Avoid conflict. It can help you to be direct. It can help you to be clear, and it can help you to be firm. If you're somebody who's too blunt, who has no filter, it can help you. Or you are undiplomatic. It can also help you overcome that too. I gave an example of in the army where they say, obey before you complain. Even though they obey, there'll be a lot of feelings on the inside that are not being harnessed, that are not being addressed. A good leader would know how a team feels. And so you can imagine if my boss knows that I'm unwell, and because he knows that I'm unwell, even though I haven't said it, I'm struggling, because I know probably there's a lot of work in the office, I'm struggling. And he can look at me and he knows that I'm unwell, and he says, "No, you take a break." You can imagine how I would respond to that job and to my boss in the future, because I know that he's seen me. He hears me, he's sensitive to my feelings. It's not just a task that is important. I, as a person, am also important. I talked about our boss who was unmarried and would call meetings at 6 p.m. and the meetings would drag on, just him talking for up to 10 o'clock in the night, forgetting that a pregnant woman was there, 8 months pregnancy, not bothered about how we get home afterwards. There were people who live very far away. You understand? You see, the staff may not say anything, but resentment will begin to build. The team will begin to fracture. So EI helps us to be more sensitive. And there's another thing that they say, that emotions, they think that, emotions make you weak. Emotions make you soft. Too soft, you become too soft. It's a myth, it's not true. They tell a man, boys don't cry. They tell them from small, boys don't cry. They say, be a man. I always used to tell people, don't tell my son that it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. When my husband saw our baby, our first child, for the first time, he wept. He was overwhelmed, and he wept, and I appreciated it. I'd gone through all the labor myself, but when I saw him respond to the baby like that, I loved him even more. So it's not emotions don't make us weak, they don't make us soft. And when you raise a child like that, he now locks up his feelings. He pretends that those feelings don't exist. He cannot properly express or communicate those feelings, even to his family. And so he wants to be loved. Such a person would want to be loved by his family, but would not be able to communicate that to the family. And the family will be thinking that, oh, he doesn't love us. You see, there'll be that that problem will exist in that kind of family. But if you can always express yourself easily, then there's communion within the family. Here it helps us to be courageous. It helps us to engage, even if it goes against the culture. I remember a pastor telling us a story about he has there were 10 siblings. His mother had 10 of them. So you can imagine very large family. And in Nigeria, when your family comes to see you, we feed our families. It's part of entertaining. You must entertain your family. You must give them something to eat, something to drink. And so after church, after doing like 2 or 3 services, his wife would be extremely tired. He too would be tired. And then the family would just land in the house, the entire family, his siblings, their spouses, their children, they'll say, oh, they want to visit their brother today. And there's so many, the house will be full of people, teeming with people. No, you need to go back because we haven't even got back here. Can you go back, please? Go back to the second slide. Go back. Yes, this one. Thank you. Because I'm still in the introduction. So, so he said his wife would now have to go into the kitchen and find food for this large number of people. And he'll know that his wife will be resentful if it doesn't help. So he'll just get up and tell his family, my wife is, she's tired, let me go and help her in the kitchen. And he knows that immediately he says that, his family members would jump up and all of them will go into the kitchen. It will now become fun and they all prepare the food together and they eat the food together and his wife is relieved. And all the time he's hyping her, he's calling her name, he's telling her, how wonderful she is, he's hugging her, he's touching her, and so she was able to accept his family with all as large as it was, just because he was emotionally intelligent, he was sensitive also to what was going on the inside of her. There are 4 performance outcomes when you have with emotional intelligence. It affects your well-being, your mental and physical health, your capacity to maintain optimal energy, to function, to thrive, and your resilience. So you find that you are happier, you are healthier, you're more productive. It helps your relationships, your personal and professional relationships, your capacity to build and maintain healthy relationships, as well as strong networks, It also helps you. I will take questions at the end. Please, Sophie, just coordinate the questions. You also become more effective. That is, you become more result-oriented. You can achieve the results that you want. You accomplish your goals. It's a key indicator of success in the workplace, your effectiveness. It's a key indicator of how successful you are going to be at work. Then it also improves your quality of life. Do you know why? Because when your well-being, when you have your optimal well-being, good and strong relationships and networks, you are effective, in the office, you achieve results, your quality of life. All this comes together to impact your quality of life. You are able to find satisfaction in the life that you're living. I want to ask you a question. How do you, individually, all of you listening to me, feel about your well-being? How do you feel about your well-being? How do you feel about the relationships, key significant relationships in your life, personally and even at work? How effective are you? I'd like you to be introspective, think a bit, reflect on these things, and answer these questions. How are you now also evaluating yourself for you to move forward? I'd like to think about that. There's a difference between IQ and EQ. Can anybody tell me what IQ is in the chat section? What do you understand as intelligence quotient and emotional quotient? But first of all, intelligence quotient. What do you think intelligence quotient is? Anybody? Okay, because of time, I will just say IQ is a measure of your conventional intelligence. Yeah, she says it's about knowledge, the measure of how intelligent you are conventionally, how you get accurate data to solve problems. You know, yeah, somebody says it's a measure of how smart someone is. Yeah, how you can solve problems, that's how smart you are. You know, EQ for how emotionally balanced you are. Yeah, EQ, in case emotional quotient, on the other hand, is a measure of your emotional intelligence. How your ability to tune into yourself and to tune into others and to read body language, all this data, emotional data that you use to solve emotional problems like conflict, solving conflict, like I told you, building coalitions of teams, managing change. Yeah, somebody said a measure of a person's reasoning ability, cognitive skills. So I'll tell you a story. There's a story of a man and his wife. He had a very hectic day in the office, really terrible day, one of those days. And so he didn't even look at his phone throughout the time he was in the office. He didn't look at it. And he walked very late at night. I was exhausted. And then he got into terrible traffic, took him 2 hours to get home. And when he got home, as soon as he rang the doorbell, the wife opened the door and downloaded on him. Irresponsible man, look at you. Irresponsible man. Can you imagine? All day I've been calling you, you didn't pick up your phone. Irresponsible man, you irresponsible man. Ooh, I'm tired of you. You are never there. When I need you, you are never there. And she had started to rain all kinds of insults on him. And I asked the class, if you were the one, how would you respond? I said, I want you to be as sincere as possible. Let's be real. And one man said he would just turn, go back to his car and drive away. Another man said, oh, he would slap her. He'd give her a resounding slap. Another one said he would just go into the kitchen, make his food, go upstairs, sleep, and leave her alone. But one man, somebody says, I'll walk away. Somebody said, I will ignore her completely. Very good. Another person, how will you react? You know? But somebody said something that struck me. Somebody, peace says, I will hug her. You know that sometimes when a woman is very angry, women will testify to this. If you try to hug her, what will she say? If there's a woman here, tell me what you will say at that point in time. What will she say? Leave me alone.
I'll push
Leave
you
me
away.
alone. Hey, she'll push him away. Do you understand? So sometimes even that hugging her might not work. A woman says she will push him away. Okay? Because that person is really mad at that point in time. So for some people, it might be their love language. They might cool down, but some others will not. What would you do? This man said he will walk into the house and sit down and leave her to get it all off her chest. And then when he sees that she has exhausted everything, he will now try and find out from her what happened. Because something must have happened to have brought her to this. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay, it appears Mrs. Agodo has dropped off the call. Can anybody see her online?
I think she just she got disconnected when she asked, can we hear her? Maybe while we wait for her, I don't know.
Ted, please, can you check if she's back on the call? Okay, so while we are waiting for her to reconnect, we'll probably take a few questions. So, Priye?
Okay, so we have some questions. I actually I was very interested in some questions that I saw. I hope I can actually retrace them back. Very interesting questions. I was even wondering how we'll manage the question session. I think one of the people asking a question about being a man and responding. If you don't, basically he was saying that if you don't respond, you are seen as a weak man. So how do you manage that? So let me just scroll back and get that particular question. It's actually
let's look for a man to answer that question. Me and you.
It was actually very interesting. I was like, no, I'm gonna, okay, I think this is it. So he said, is there a thin line between a man showing emotions and also preaching? Is she back?
Yes, she's back.
Okay. Well, I would like to take this question. I'm interested in the answer.
Okay. Tech, please, can you unmute Mrs. Agodo?
Hello, are you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so where were we? We're talking about the man and his wife, and some people said there was one man said he would slap, another said they will walk away, one man said she will hug. You know, the kind of how would we react? But somebody said something in that meeting that struck me. He said he would sit down and let her finish venting. And when she's done, he will now find out exactly what went wrong. What went wrong was that their child was ill. She tried to, very sick. She tried to reach her husband all day. She couldn't. She had to run from hospital to hospital. She was tired. She was fatigued. She was frustrated. And so slapping her would have worsened it. Walking away would have worsened the issue. Hugging her would have helped, I believe, even if she was not ready to receive it at that point in time, but it would have been better. But I asked that man, I said, why would you have responded in that manner? He said, because he made a decision before he got married that the peace in his home is more important than anything else. He took that decision even before he got married, that he will always do everything to maintain the peace in his home. So that man was being proactive. He was responding from a valued system that he had. He wasn't just reacting to whatever it was that was happening at that moment. Do you get that, everybody? Are we on the same page? So yes, IQ and EQ, okay, are not opposite. You use both. You use your language. Language is IQ. It helps you identify and label your emotions. And there are about 3,000 words for emotions. If you won't believe it, so many words for emotions. So your IQ helps you to identify as well as label, this is what I'm feeling, you know. So in a nutshell, overview, emotions are data. You observe them, like I say, like you observe the clouds in the sky. You don't decide that, okay, they're not good, so I'm not going to feel them. They are signals, they are your advisors. Don't ignore them. Just by knowing emotional intelligence, it will give you the benefit. Understand that. That just the fact that, oh, we've done this and you know a lot about emotional intelligence, it will give you the benefits of emotional intelligence. It must be used intelligently and it must be used intentionally every single day. So let's do a little game before we go into the main thing. That's just an overview. I just want to see if you're an early riser. We have How many participants? If you're an early riser, 192 now. Can you indicate? Can you indicate? Sophie, let's know how many. Are there many early risers here?
All right, I'll just take a note. Well, I have one person saying I am, another two,
Early.
so 3, 4, 5, a lot of people are coming on. I think I've had 7 people.
Wow.
7 people so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Fantastic.
8. I have the 8th person, the 9th person, the 10th person. 11 people so far. Yes, 11 people are early risers here, man.
So out of the 198, we have
I have a 12th, a 13th, 14th. A lot of people. A lot of people.
Okay,
A lot of people.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people can speak 3 languages fluently here? If you can speak 3 languages fluently, put on your hand and indicate again.
Sorry, ma, does that include our local dialect, Yoruba, Igbo, or is
yes,
3 international language?
It does. Yes, 3 languages, doesn't matter. Oh, wow, wow.
So we have 2 people, 3,
3, 4,
5.
Wow. That's
a lot of people.
I thought we wouldn't get anybody. A lot of people can speak 3 languages fluently, not just know how to breathe. No, not pidgin. There's nobody. Somebody says speaking English. Speaking English, I don't think that qualifies. Fluent is 3. Fantastic. Fantastic. Faith Obianuju is fluent too. Aminat Musa.
We have so many English outside Yoruba here.
Yes. English, Yoruba, Egu. Can you say Yoruba and Egu are different? Then who can speak Chinese? Put down your hands. Is anybody who can speak Chinese here? Larinde Said Olaleko can speak 3 languages fluently. Is anybody who can speak Chinese? No, somebody has a long no. They can't speak Chinese. Yira Gobe. Okay, I'm learning Chinese.
Someone is here saying he's learning Chinese.
That's good. That's a secret, really. I thought, no, somebody say, hello, Ruth. Yeah. Somebody was asking a question on Chinese, but it went so fast. Only me, how? I don't think they'll be happy with you. Okay, thank you. So we can move on. I just wanted us to relax a bit, Let's move on. So emotional intelligence is accountable for about 80% of career success. That's Daniel Goleman. It's your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself as well as others. And so also your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior as well as and manage your relationships. Let's move to the next slide quickly, please. Next slide, please. I'm viewing Stanley Ogboko's screen. Can we move to the, okay. In the corporate world, executives hold the opinion that IQ gets you hired, but EQ gets you promoted. Your self-awareness, your emotional, your self-regulation, ability to regulate your emotions, your motivation, self-motivation, your social skills and empathy, ability to empathize. These are key components of emotional intelligence, and these are the things that get you promoted. Are you a people person? Do you have people skills? You may know the task, you may be very good at the task, but EQ and IQ, there's no one is more important. Both work hand in hand. If you have both of them, you are more effective. Yeah. So IQ gets you hired, your skills get you hired, but your attitude, your EQ will get you promoted. Let's move on. Time Magazine, that's what they say, and that's the truth. Let's move on, please, to the next slide. Thank you. Anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, is your anger misplaced? And to the right degree, can you hold it back? Can you harness it for the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way? That is not easy, but it's something that can be worked on. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, I wish I could change the slide. in-stream from there. What are the components of EQ mentioned? You'll get to that. There's another slide on that. I was just only giving an overview, but you'll get to it. Please, can we move on to the next screen? Thank you. Thank you. Next screen, please. Thank you. Wow. I wish I had my own screen on. Please, who is managing the screens? Ewoma. Okay, so now let's go on to the science behind emotional intelligence. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me, please?
Yes, ma, we can hear you loud and clear.
Please, can they change the screen?
Okay, we're
Can they
working on
change
that.
the screen? Yes. They are working on it. Okay, so in the interim, I'll just talk about the science behind emotional intelligence. We all think that emotions are a matter. Thank you, Jennifer. We all think that emotions are just a matter of the heart. You know, every time you think about emotions, you think of love. I love you, you love me. We are happy family. It's a great big hug and a kiss from you to me. For me to you, won't you say you love me too? That's what we think about when we think about emotions, love, you know. But they are not. They are a result of brain chemistry. Amazing. The control center of emotions in the brain is called the limbic system. It stores every emotion we have had from the first moment of life. Everything is stored in your subconscious. The rational brain, our thinking and our language is connected to this emotional brain. So we have a rational brain, but we also have an emotional brain, and both are connected. Thank you for the song. This is where we are, yes. Thank you. They influence one another. You look at it, you think rationally over here, you have the limbic system here, you feel here, but they are all connected and they influence one another. So you have neurons sending signals to the brain, and you also have this chemical system called peptide transmitting emotional messages to the brain. And do you know one very interesting thing? Emotional responses are milliseconds faster than your cognitive or your thinking responses. Chemicals go through your pituitary gland into your bloodstream. They stay 6 seconds in your brain. And so they tell you when there's a threat, like that lady whose car was hit. There was a rush of emotions, a flood of emotions to her brain. And it got there before her thinking, her reasoning faculty. If she had waited 6 seconds, just taking a deep breath, or waited 6 seconds, she would have seen the bigger picture. She should have been able to react more rationally, because your emotional responses are faster. They get there milliseconds before your cognitive or thinking responses, sorry. And they stay, those emotions, they stay 6 seconds in your brain. So at that point in time, when you get this rush of emotions, you think fight, you think run away. Yeah, that's right. Yes. You think freeze, you know, you think fight, you think flight, you think freeze. Some people, when have said, when ladies are sexually assaulted, some people ask the question, why didn't they fight? Why didn't they fight back? It must be difficult to force yourself on a woman if she doesn't consent to it. She can fight you back. But they forget that people respond in different ways. Some will fight, some will take flight, and some will freeze. There are those who freeze. When that man was attacked, some took flight, some said they will run away. That was taking flight. Some said they will slap her. They'll slap her. That is fighting. And some might not just know what to do. They'll sit down and just be frozen. It depends. A lot of the time, there are things that have happened in our childhood as we were growing up, things stored in our subconscious. And sometimes these things that happen, these threats that come to us, are like triggers. So they trigger that thing in our subconscious. And that's why, and because we don't want it, we force, it tells us our response is fight back. It's going to happen again. Fight now. Stop it immediately. Or run away, or you just freeze. Emotion initially comes like a flood. When it comes like that, you need to stop for 6 seconds. 6 seconds. So that you can see the full picture, so that you can take a more rational decision. Can you see this? Okay. You can't see me because we have to stop the video. Wow. Okay, just imagine that you have a perfume bottle.
I think you can put on your video.
You think so now? Huh? Okay.
Yes.
We can see you now.
Okay, so yeah, you can see me. So just imagine that you have a bottle of perfume like this, and you spray that initial burst of perfume into the air is the initial burst of emotions, chemicals into your brain. If you wait for 6 seconds, that initial burst will begin to disperse and diffuse into the air. And then you become more rational. And then you can think clearly. And you can take smarter decisions. 6 seconds. Wait for 6 seconds. Train yourself to wait for 6 seconds. When it diffuses into the air, you begin to feel, because the initial burst of emotion comes, and then your feelings come. It's a physical, feelings are physical. It's a tensing of your muscles. It's sweat. It's numbness. Or it's a sinking in your spirit if it's happy. And then it affects your moods. Sometimes when you find yourself in a particular mood, begin to ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling? How have I evaluated that emotion? How have I interpreted it? How have I interpreted that emotion? So you must, because it will affect your mood so that you can change your mood. I'll tell you a story. I was supposed to have a very large training this December, very big training that I looked forward to. I love training. And this one was going to take me to the town where my son lives, my first son. I haven't seen him in a year. So I was looking forward to the opportunity to see him too, because he's very busy. And then I got a message. I had done a lot of work preparing for this training. And then I got a message that they were going to keep it until next year. That no more trainings this year, but sorry, we're moving it until next year. And I don't know, I felt frustrated because I put in a lot of work. And I was expecting that we had finalized in that, and then I get this message. And I felt disappointment, from frustration to disappointment. And I knew if I let these feelings go on, I could really sink, because it meant a lot to me. So what did I do? I validated the emotion. I said, yeah, this is a curve that has been thrown at me. It's not I don't like it. I'm not feeling good. I'm frustrated. One. Then I explored the emotion. Why are you feeling this way? And then I decided to reframe it. Yeah, you're feeling this way because you were looking forward to it, because it was a large opportunity, because you were going to be paid a lot. It doesn't like money. Do you understand? But I tried to reframe it that it's also an opportunity for me to think of new strategies, to think of not just physical training, but to probably go more online. I can stop the video for more clarity. Okay. Not me. Was that for me or was that for everybody? I think it was for everybody, not for me. Me, ma. Okay. Thank you. So you validate your emotions. When you have a burst of emotions like that, stop and validate them. Yes, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. Then explore the emotion. What is this emotion trying to tell me? What is it speaking to me? Because it's an advisor. It's data that I can use. And then transform it or reframe it. if you can now tell yourself, what next? What do I do about this emotion? How can I make it work for me? Do you understand? Rather than working against it. So you reframe it. So when I reframed it and I saw an opportunity in it to re-strategize and to begin to do things differently, I got back my energy. I got back my joy. I got back my motivation. Our brains are linked with our body systems. We have receptors in every cell of our bodies. Emotional signals in the brain are felt throughout the body. So whatever emotional signal is in the brain, you feel it throughout your body. That's why sometimes you see some people are afraid and they pee, or sometimes they go numb. You feel your emotions throughout your body. That's why they say when you smile, you use fewer muscles. You say happy, they say Mary had to food like medicine. You don't get sick if you're a very happy person, you're positive all the time. Then there's something which we all call intuition. A lot of time we just think we dismiss it. But we don't realize that intuition, she says sometimes you tend to suppress rather than validate. Yes, that's why you need this course. Because now you will say to yourself, why am I in this mood? What emotions am I experiencing? Then you accept it, you validate it. Yes, those emotions are valid. Then you ask yourself, well, what are they trying to tell me? And how can I reframe it for more effective results? So intuitions accumulated reliable emotional data that offers us valuable clues to guide our behavior. Only if we are aware of its existence and we learn to interpret it. If you don't like this person, there's just something about that person. Don't dismiss it. It's a valid emotion. It's offering you a valuable clue that should guide your behavior. Perhaps you need to be a bit careful. You're trying to go into business with this person. You have to check. Take a step back and do a little bit more research, because it's meant to guide your behavior. But you must be aware of its existence. They're not seeing the slides. Somebody says they're not seeing the slides, and you must learn to interpret your intuition. We make better decisions when we act on information from our feelings as well as from our rational intellect. Like I told you, you use your IQ as well as your EQ. You make better decisions when you act on your feelings as well as your rational intellect. Can we go to components of EI? The case for emotional intelligence, 90% of our top performers have high EQ. That is the truth. And because of that, they earn more than their counterparts annually. That is the truth. And it also affects how effective they are on the job. Intuition, when you just feel, a lot of women are more sensitive to their intuition. What do you mean by intuition? She said she doesn't understand. You just have this feeling. You have this feeling about this thing. Something, a gut feeling. You can't explain it properly, but you sense that there's something wrong about somebody, or you suddenly you distrust the person. I'm talking about individuals. When you just think to yourself, I really wouldn't want to go to this place at this point in time. Do you understand? That's what we call intuition. It's not something that is spoken out. It's something that you just feel on the inside in your gut. I'm saying that those things are not to be dismissed because they are actually accumulated reliable data that has been stored in your subconscious and that they offer valuable clues to guide your behavior. But you must be aware of it. Instinct, yeah. Instinct and intuition. Instinct and intuition. You have an instinct about something, and then you have intuition. Yeah. Can somebody check up instinct and intuition in the dictionary and just put it up on the board? Let's see what it is, because I know that intuition is more of the way you feel inside, but an instinct is the same thing too. So I believe you can use them interchangeably, but if you can just check the dictionary, let's be sure. Okay, while you are doing that, just type it in the chat so we can see. Let's go on to the 5 components of emotional intelligence. 5 components of EI. Yeah, this doesn't show it so well. I didn't notice it. There's self-awareness. Janet Augustine says she can't hear. Can everybody else hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the ability to understand something instinctively without conscious reasoning, intuition. Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. Yes,
Sorry,
you just know it in your knower. Yeah.
Can you hear me, ma?
Yeah.
So it says instinct is a feeling or reaction based on a person's past experiences.
Okay.
Intuition, on the other hand, is a feeling or reaction based on a person's gut feeling.
Feeling, okay. So your instinct is based on your past experiences. Your intuition is based on your gut feeling. But your gut feeling is also based on your past experiences too. It's an accumulation too. It's both. So intuition is a bit more than instinct. That's what we're saying. Because intuition also is reliable data in your subconscious, immediate cognition without the use of conscious, rational processes. You feel it, you know that there is something wrong, but you're not being, it's just something that you sense. Let me put it that way. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you. So let's talk about the 5 components of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is the first one. Self-awareness. Yes, thank you. Self-awareness. The second is self-regulation. The third is motivation. The fourth is empathy. And the fifth is social skill. Social skill. Self-regulation. Can we go on to the next one, please? It's knowing yourself. Is the ability to understand your emotions, to know your own emotions, to stay aware of your emotions as they happen, to respond to specific situations and to people. You must know yourself. That's the first thing. Know yourself. Self-regulation is man know thyself, Socrates. Yes. It's choose yourself. Is know yourself. That's the first thing. Know yourself. All change starts from the inside. You must be able to tune in, to ask yourself questions. Why am I feeling this way? They ask you to make a presentation and you say, no, I can't do it. You must ask yourself, why did I say no? Oh, because I feel that they will laugh at me. Why will they laugh at you? Oh, because I don't really feel that I'm competent. I think that there are more people who are more competent than I am, who will listen to me and who will make a mockery of me. So you know, I feel inadequate in this area. I need to work on it. Do you understand? Rather than just say, no, I don't speak in public. I don't present. You haven't even bothered to find out why you're saying that. You know? So you must be able to observe your emotions. Why am I feeling this way? What's going on the inside of me? What am I feeling? What am I doing with it? Like I said, validate that emotion, explore it, be aware of it, be clear about it. Then you transform and then you reframe it. Okay, so it helps you to keep on top of how you respond to people and to situations because you know who you are. I remember once somebody said to me, you are such a big woman, you should be wearing gold. I like costume jewelry. You should be wearing gold, to fit your status. Now, if I wasn't self-aware of who I am, where I'm going, what's important to me, I probably would have helped her by buying up all her gold. Because she would have spoken to an insecurity in me, and I would have started buying gold because have achieved a certain status. Well, I just thought to myself, that's crap. I know who I am, and I know what I want out of life. And I know I am Okolo Rita Chima Obi from Abuja. You're welcome. But when I say who you are, it's more than your name. When I say who you are, it's more than what you do, what you are doing in the office. When they say introduce yourself, you say I'm Ina Obioma, Chief MD CEO of. No, that's not it. Who are you? on the inside. What do you want out of life? Where are you headed? What are your values to you? What's not important to you? You need to be very, very clear about it because it will help you also place your boundaries. I don't go for parties and and best unless the person is very close to me because I just feel that it takes away from my time and my time is precious and there's so life we just have a little time here and a little time to expend here, and when I die I want to be able to die empty, knowing that there's nothing that I was called to do here that I've left undone. So therefore I need to prioritize how I spend my time. So that's just being self-aware. Now can we move on to the next slide, please? Can we move on to the next slide? What does it do? When you are able to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, your drive, you reflect and you understand them and their effects on others, as well as your ability to understand how you respond to situations and other people's actions, you find that you become more confident. You are able to realistically accept yourself. You can even laugh at yourself because you see, you know yourself, you know. And if you're able to assess yourself honestly, you're also able to do the same for the organization. There's a story of a lion that grew up with sheep. And because he grew up with sheep from babyhood, he actually thought he was a sheep. Until one day, lion came and was chasing the sheep, and this baby cub was running away with the sheep. And the lion was wondering, why is my fellow lion running away? You know, why is it behaving like sheep? And so he pounced on it and said, what are you doing? And that one was begging, no, don't harm me, don't harm me. He said, look, you don't know who you are. So he took him to the river and said, look into the water. And that cub saw that he was exactly like this lion that he was frightened of. And he let out a roar. That roar was, I have come to know who I am. I know my nature and I know my tribe. You must know your nature. You must know your tribe because you thrive when you have accepted your nature, when you embrace it, and when you know your tribe. It's a place where you will do very well. If you see fish in the water, you see that it just flows very smoothly, swims so, and it looks so beautiful in the water. But take it out of the water and put it on the land, the fish begins to gasp for breath, begins to die. When you are with your tribe, in the place where you are meant to be, you will thrive. It's something you must always ask yourself. Am I a square peg in a round hole, or am I a round peg in a round hole? Look for your round hole if you're a round peg, and look for your square hole if you're a square peg. And when you are self-aware, you find that you are also able, because you can realistically assess yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses. You can work on your weaknesses. You're not in limbo. You're not lost in your emotions. You're not lost somewhere. You know who you are. So somebody was riding on a horse, and they said to him, "Where are you going?" He said, "I don't know. Ask the horse." That man was lost. We cannot be lost. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. Know thyself. How to improve your self-awareness. Okay. See yourself for who you are. Watch your emotions, even your physiological signs. When you are talking to somebody, how do you feel? You know. And then when you are in a difficult conversation, be conscious of your emotions. And then when it's over, track and backtrack your emotions during that conversation. Learn what your tendencies are emotionally, in emotionally arousing situations. How did you react? How did you react like that? You know? And then get somebody to help you to be accountable, so you can talk with the person. We are partners in this, you know, and tell me how well I'm doing. Then take full responsibilities for whatever you say or to be accountable. Don't push the buck. Be accountable. Next slide, please. And that's how to improve your self-awareness. We're moving on to self-regulation. What does it mean, self-regulation? It's choosing yourself. You know, I said self-awareness is knowing yourself. Self-regulation is choosing yourself. You have to be more intentional. You must be able to pause, to stop and say, what are my options? You must be able to respond, not react. You see, people who are in control of their impulses are able to create an environment of trust, an environment of trust and fairness. There's not all this infighting politics within the organization. It's reduced. And so there's increased productivity and there's more money for the organization. Yes, I can say, we can share it. We can share the slide. So don't panic at change. You don't panic at change because you are self-regulated. You rise to the change, and it enhances your integrity. You can be trusted. It's a personal virtue as well as an organizational one. You can be trusted because you are self-regulated. But if you are somebody who just goes off very easily, people feel unsafe around you. Even in your home, you feel unsafe. See some fathers, as soon as they come home, the children are running into different rooms. Why? Daddy is home. Shouldn't be that way. Daddy is home. Should be a safe haven. Should be running towards your daddy or running away from him. That's the problem. Now, can we move on to the next slide, self-regulation? Motivation. How motivated are you? That's the story of what is motivation. Who can tell me what it means to be motivated? What is, in your own words, is motivation? What, in your own words, is motivation? Stephen Loyede, okay, to be inspired. To be inspired, fine. Any other person? Something that drives you, to be driven, to encourage. It means to be driven to action. Yeah, passion to achieve goals. I love that. Passion to achieve goals. You see, how can you be self-motivated? How, if everything is going wrong, can you still be motivated? How? It's giving, I said self-awareness is knowing yourself. Self-regulation is what? Choosing yourself. Self-motivation is giving yourself. It's looking beyond yourself. What do you really want out of life? How do you really want to show up? What is your purpose? What makes greater meaning to you? What is the significance of life to you? Once you know these things, you will have that propensity to pursue your goals with energy and persistence. I know what is important to me. What is important to me is making sure that people achieve their full potential in life. That's why I can do this and enjoy doing it. Do you understand? That's what is important to me, whether it is the abused woman or the child or the youth. What is that thing? What is the greater meaning of your life? When you have it, you will have the drive to be able to do your work enthusiastically, wherever you find yourself, because there's something on the inside of you that tells you you have the reason to be in this life that gives you worth. Motivation is a passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status, a propensity to pursue your goals with energy and persistence. It's a strong drive to achieve. It's optimism in the face of failure, and it's commitment to your organization, a reason for doing something. Exactly. Can I move on to the next slide? I want to tell you the story of a woman while you are changing the slide. Florence Chadwick. She was going to swim the English Channel, and she had already done the Italian Channel. And so the water was extremely cold and there were sharks in the water. And so a boat had to go alongside her and they were shooting into the water to drive away the sharks. And the fog was thick. She couldn't see 1 foot ahead of her. But she had to swim and she wanted to break the world record. And she swam and swam and swam and swam and swam until she got extremely tired. And she couldn't go anymore. She couldn't even see where she was going. She couldn't see her destination. The fog was too thick. So she gave up. And they tried to tell her to continue, but she gave up. She said, no, I'm tired. And she came out of the water and went into the boat. And then found that the land was just only a few feet away from her. She had already finished the race and she didn't realize it just because she couldn't see. So when they asked her, why did you give up when you were so close to the finishing point? She said, because I couldn't see the shoreline. I couldn't see. The next year, she went back again to do this same race. And this time she beat world record because she said, the fog was still as thick, but I pictured in my mind's eye, I pictured the shoreline in my mind's eye. I knew that behind the fog was the shoreline. So I put that in my mind and I just kept on swimming towards it, and she broke the world record. What motivates you? What is in your mind's eye? What is that big picture that you have in your mind's eye? What is that goal that you want to achieve in your mind's eye? Buni of Kadri, when they asked him, what do you want to be, when they were interviewing him in 10 years' time, he told the MD, I want to be sitting on your seat. He didn't do it in 10 years. He did it in 11 years. What is that thing that's your driving force? You must know it. Anybody who is motivated is somebody who is driven to achieve beyond expectations. He has a passion for work. He likes challenges. He's creative. He loves to learn. He takes great pride in a job well done. He has unflagging energy to do things better. You miss the Chadwick story. You raise the performance bar. You like to keep track of progress, you know, and he's optimistic. Even when faced with setbacks, he's committed to his job wherever he finds himself. Florence Chadwick is just a woman who was able to beat the world record in swimming because she envisioned the shoreline, even though there was a thick fog. She had failed once because she said, I couldn't see the shoreline. The second time when she went at it again, she envisioned it. She knew that behind the fog was the shoreline. She was able to meet her goals. That's Florence Chadwick. You can always read it up, you know. Okay, now the next one. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. How do you motivate others? First of all, you must motivate yourself before you can even motivate any other person. When you see a motivated person, somebody who is motivated, that person is very, very, very it's inspiring. Just watching a motivated person can motivate you yourself. So work on yourself first. You must, like I said, develop a personal satisfaction of fulfillment. You must be interested in what you're doing. And then seek out other motivated people. Misery likes company. Ignore those people who are always complaining, who never seem to be going anywhere. They are going nowhere to happen. You shouldn't be around them. It's infectious or contagious. You will get it. You know, so seek out other people who are motivated, who have energy, who have drive, who are going somewhere to happen. And then to yourself realistically, remind yourself of positive experiences. I did it then, I can do it. You know, I did it then, I can do it. I tell women who have been abused that same thing. Stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself who you are. Tell yourself who God calls, what God calls you. You know, head and not tail, above all wings and not beneath. It's upon a hill that can never be hidden. You know, tell yourself that. Have realistic self-talk. And when you are wrong, when you know that you have a weakness, go and work on it. Go and learn. Find who knows it. Learn more. Set goals for yourself. Take calculated risks. And then keep on. Don't give up in spite of setbacks, because setbacks are normal. You know, just view them as manageable circumstances. You know, operate from a hope of success. And then know when to ask for help. Know when to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. It doesn't make you smaller. If you don't know it today, you'll know it tomorrow. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Let's go on to empathy. What is empathy? It's being attuned to body language of other people, the emotional, understanding the emotional makeup of other people. Is active listening. What is active listening? It's listening to somebody without being worried about how you are going to respond. It's not cutting in before the other person has finished. You make eye contact, you let the person know, I'm hearing you. It's listening not just to the words that the person is speaking, but the words that the person is not speaking, what the person is not saying. Active listening. It's listening to understand the other person. It's not listening to prove your own point. It's putting yourself in another person, listening intentionally. Thank you. It's putting yourself in another person's shoes. is respecting your differences. Is walking slowly through the crowd. Is seeing people and hearing people. I remember my daughter, when I went to, she schooled out of the country, both my kids. But when I went to see them in their community, people will stop me and they'll ask me, are you their mother? Oh, well done, you've done well. You've raised wonderful children. Even when I went to the store nearby, the same thing, I entered this shuttle, the same thing. So when I got to my first to my kids, what are you doing in this community that is making people love you so much and praise you so much? They're complimenting me. So my daughter laughed and she said, oh, mommy, we greet people. I said, just that? She said, yes. She said, because you see that this environment, people are always in a hurry. So they walk past without making eye contact, they walk past without greetings. But because of our culture, because we were trained that if you don't greet, it means that you lack manners. So we greet them. So when I enter the shuttle bus to school, I greet the lady, the driver of the bus, and I become friendly with her. I go to the store, I greet. I'm walking past them, they're on their porches, I greet. We greet them. So I said, so that's what they said to me. Your children are huge on respect. And that's, we must always, it's the same thing. Wherever you are, walk slowly through the crowd. Listen, hear. Don't ignore people. Greeting, yes. Don't ignore people. It's amazing. There's a young man who said that every time he's going home in Lagos here, he buys sweets because there are a lot of children in his area, nice gifts, and he gives them. And so they love him. And all the mothers love him. And he greets everybody on the way to his house. He says a hello to everyone. And you know that one day his house was burning, but there was a pastor who's his neighbor who just was also hoity-toity and wouldn't say anything and wouldn't interact, wouldn't engage with people. One day their house was burning and he wasn't at home. The neighbors broke down the door and took out all his property. They didn't do the same for the pastor. Not intentionally. No, they were not being wicked to the pastor. They were just more concerned about this boy who they loved so much, who engaged with people. So they rescued him, he didn't lose anything. The ability to treat people. Remember that everybody is a husband, is a wife, is a sister, is a brother, is a daughter, is a son, and treat them the same way. Don't think that they are beggars or that you are the only one who's the genius in the organization. Empathy. Walk slowly through the crowd, see and hear. It engenders trust with your team. It increases engagement. They are able to talk to you, and it increases productivity. And the bottom line of your organization will be impacted. So your bosses will be happy. Everybody will be happy. You will have your bonuses at the end of the year. It's the skill in treating people according to their emotional reaction. It's expertise in building and retaining talent, because you can retain talent. They don't want to go anywhere. They like working in that environment. Okay, thank you. And then it's service to clients and customers. I will soon be done. So the last one is social skills. Okay, thank you very much, Yira. Can we go on to social skills? The next slide, please. Like I said, you are hired for your skills, for your stats, for your attitude. How to develop empathy. I've told you, you should acknowledge people's feelings. You should be a good coach. And you can all look at it after that, After you know that you are being heard, and then always probe to listen and to hear what's important, and always ask for feedback so that you know that you're on the same page, Okay, can we move on? Can we move on to the next one? The next one too. Social skills. You are hired for your skills, for your tact, for your attitude. Some people can't pick up social cues. Like I told you at the beginning, you have 5 developmental areas. Social skills is one of them. Some people have very poor social skills. You can't go far in life with poor social skills. It's very, very important. I had a colleague who was very sensitive. Nobody could speak with him. We avoided him until one day he said, please, that's not the way my face looks. That's not how my heart is. My heart isn't like that. but he made everybody uncomfortable. If you look at this picture, you will see this girl likes this guy. They both like each other. She's saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And he's thinking, what should I say? Guy, he dropped the ball. He dropped the ball. You must be able to pick up social cues and express yourself. It helps you to manage your relationships effectively. You must be able to put your emotional intelligence at work. You must be able to communicate. Can we move on, please? Can we move on, please? You must value others. You must have a balance. The task is not all that is important to you in the organization. You must also pay attention to relationships. You must collaborate and you must openly communicate. You must promote a friendly or cooperative climate. You must also not always take the credit. You should never take the credit. It's a team. It's a team, and then you should also be able to handle and influence other people's emotions effectively. You can only do that if you are aware of their emotions. Can we move on, please? When you have very strong social skills, you build a very strong network of people, and you are able to maintain and build strong friendships. That's very key. I told you, people are promoted because of high EQ. You'll be surprised that it's not just how skilled you are on the job, it's also how sociable you are, the people skills that you have. So in a nutshell, self-awareness and self-regulation help you manage your inner world and your own life in ways that lead to well-being. When you have good emotional health, you have positive health and very good emotional well-being. Empathy and social self-awareness and self-regulation and motivation help you manage your inner world and your own life. Empathy and social skills help you create third-party personal connections. Thank you very much. Let's move on. The last slide. Last slide, please. So you are successful if in the area of self-control, when you are composed and calm under pressure, or when you are moody and you get angry and flip easily, you need to work on that. In the area of conscientiousness, if you take responsibility, you fix the problem and quickly move forward, you're successful there. But if you are on the defensive, you cover up and you assign blame easily, always pushing the box, it's not my fault, it's not me, I'm not the one who's in charge here, you need to work on that area. If you have trustworthiness, if you have high integrity and you are concerned about others, you'll be called trustworthy. But if you always undermine the process and you try to get ahead at any cost because you're just the only intelligent person, you're not a team player, then you need to really work on that. Social skills, if you're somebody who's empathetic, you're tactful, you don't say, this is how I say it, that is how I am. You need to grow up, you need to grow up, learn to be more diplomatic, show consideration for people. Then you have good social skills. But if you lack empathy, you're abrasive, you're arrogant, or you're intimidating, nobody can even speak with you, then you failed. You need to work on that area. And building bonds. If you're insensitive or manipulative in that area, then you also need to work in that. So I want to quickly give you some tips for emotional mastery. 1, in summary, all emotions are data. All emotions are neutral. They are something to be observed. They are a resource for better decisions. Secondly, always ask, what are these emotions telling me? Thirdly, address the issue when the emotion is small. Most emotional challenges do not solve themselves. They will only get louder and bigger. Address it when that emotion is small. Your thoughts affect the way you feel, and they will ultimately affect the actions that you take. If you tell yourself you are hopeless, you have no options, then you are likely to fall into depression. It will affect the actions that you take. A disappointing outcome will lead to feelings of frustration. You can either shut down or you explode, or better still, if you have good emotional intelligence, You reframe the situation and then you take positive action. You must learn to recognize your patterns and how your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions interact. It is key, especially when you deal with workplace conflict. What are my triggers? What makes me respond in this particular manner? You must know. Help us get an accurate picture. EI helps us get an accurate picture of what you are perceiving and helps you deal with the fundamental issues rather than the problem. Can we move to the next slide, please? In a nutshell, I've just told you the key things. Question time. Now I can answer questions. Alongside, okay, thank you. I'm trying to read the comments.
I want to thank you so much, Ma, for this session. Personally, maybe I want to say maybe my company set me up because this was actually for me. It's like they just like Supreme fits this because I gained a lot, and in fact, everything I can't finish everything today. So I don't know if you can probably drop your social media handle here so that we can follow. I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking that. You can follow,
okay.
After here, probably we can ask questions because I actually so much I gained a lot because I feel like I said this is for me. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So I'll just ask that if you have any questions, please drop your questions in the chat room, and you can also raise your hand so we can take a few questions. But please, Ma, drop your social media handle. I'm sure I personally would like to follow you and try to have an engagement one-on-one, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking that. So we'll get.
It's just Emmanuel's change. Emmanuel with an I. Emmanuel's change. It's Emmanuel with an I.
Okay, can I type that so that at least it's in the chat room? So that is
Emmanuel's change. We are Emmanuel's change agent, but the handle is Emmanuel's change. Emmanuel is written with an I, not an E.
Emmanuel's
an
change.
I, not an E. Yes, that's just it. God's
okay, is that what social media is that? Is that Instagram?
Instagram. That's Instagram.
Please, I hope I got it right. Emmanuel's change. Is there an apostrophe before the S? I believe there should be.
No, it's just Emmanuel change together.
Okay.
IMMANUELSCHANGE. That's just it.
All right, I'll just have that on Instagram. All right, so let's get on. I have a question. Then I'll let others, since I'm the one anchoring. I mean, I can cheat. So let me cheat. Let me go on. So my own question goes: is there the level of our emotional intelligence? Does it have to do with our personality? Because I know each and every one of us have different personalities. Like I would say I'm an extrovert. There are some people who are introverted. There are some people who are ambiverts. So does our emotional intelligence, are we naturally born with a certain type of emotional intelligence that some people are more reactive and some are more responsive? So that's my own question. I don't know if you want to take that, or you have all the questions taken before you answer.
No, let me take that.
Okay.
We are not born with emotional intelligence. You were born as clean slate, but your environment can affect you, and watching the way somebody responds can also affect you. Do you understand?
Yes.
We can. So if you are living, for instance, with somebody who is emotionally intelligent, it's most likely that you're going to also pick that up because you're watching how that person responds, how they react, how empathetic they are. So it can come natural, but you can also learn it. There's a young man who was in the same office who works with me. I learned a lot from him. He had a lot of sayings. He would say, yes, I know the key house boy. And why did he tell me that? Because I was upset that our boss always wanted us to come and say, we are off, we're leaving the office, even after we had stayed longer than we were supposed to stay in the office. He would still want us to come to his office, open his door and say, sir, I'm going home. And when I complained, he said to me, yes, I know the key house boy. As the fact that you're saying a servant is saying yes sir to his employer doesn't mean that it will kill him. If that's what he wants and it will make him happy and give you peace, then give it to do that, so long as it's not against the law. Do you understand? So I did
Yes.
that and I had peace of mind. So what was that just opening his door and saying, I'm off, sir. You know, but it took that person to point it out to me because he grew up with his grandfather, and so he was a child who was ahead of his years emotionally. Do you understand? And then I remember he said to me that if work not finish when they retire, they sent some people away from the bank, they laid off some people, and then people were upset. And he said if work not finish for UAC, we're not gonna say work there for John Holt. What he was saying is when one door closes, another opens. If this opportunity shuts, then it's opportunity for you to look out for more new grounds. Do you understand? Fresh areas will open onto you, but you must be ready to look out for them. So he had a lot of all those things, but that was because he was living with somebody who was also very, very emotionally intelligent. But if you don't, if you are not, you can always learn it. You must practice it and you must be intentional about it. So it really doesn't have to do with your personality. You can be an extrovert and not very emotionally intelligent. You can be an introvert and you are. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. So maybe I'll take Mr. John Koroma. His hands, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay, so we'll go with Mr. John Koroma. His hand has been up since you've been talking. So let's have him ask his question. So please go ahead.
Okay. I lost the audio. I just lost audio. Okay, I can hear you.
Hello?
Please, John, can you
yes.
work on your background? There's a lot of noise on your background, so we can clearly hear you.
There's a lot of background.
So let me leave the background. The background is very.
Okay, maybe while we wait for him, we'll take Damilola. So we don't waste any time. So Damilola, can you unmute yourself? Okay, he's back. Okay, we can hear you now. Go on, please. It's more
Yes,
Damilola, please hold on.
Hello?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Can I go on?
Yes, please, you can.
Yes, the discussion is very interesting, and it has actually touched on some of our emotions because, as you rightly said, and I've already asked a question and also made a contribution that most times, if the wrong person crosses your path, your emotions can become a little bit aggravated. So, in this context, how would you advise someone that actually faces such a situation? What would be your response?
Say it again, please. I didn't get that.
Yeah, I'm saying certain times. Yeah, can I go again?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm
sorry,
saying.
Ma, do we take orders while maybe you answer everything at the same time? You want to take this one?
Let me take this one, please.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, you were saying something could have happened to you in your past, yeah?
Yes, I'm saying if someone crosses your path that actually impacts negatively on your emotions, how would you be able to handle a situation like that? And because most times, we live in a society that people definitely want to make you become more angry than you expect. So in that situation, how would you respond? How would you react?
You don't react, you respond.
You respond, yes. How do you respond?
Because reacting is reacting to the fact that, oh, I'm angry. And I told you pause for 6 seconds when that person upsets you, so that you can see the bigger picture, so that the initial burst of emotion leaves dissipates in your brain, and then you can look at the matter more rationally. What I would say to you, first and foremost, what is it about this person that upsets you and why? You need to ask yourself that question. And then you need to be able to put yourself in that person's shoes, to be empathetic, to see why does this person behave in this manner. I tell you one thing. I went when I was young with my mother to buy something in a shop, and the cashier was she was very annoying and slow. So I was upset. So when we were leaving, I was telling my mother, just look at her attitude. The customer service is really poor there. My mother said she's pregnant. Can't you see she's heavily pregnant? And I remember at a young age, I wonder what does that have to do with it? So when I had my first pregnancy, then that conversation came back and I understood. At that age, she was already due, uncomfortable, couldn't breathe well. about 8 months, but still happy to stay at the job. So why is that person reacting that way? You need to also step into that person's shoes, into that person's thing. Do you understand? Step back.
Yes.
And try and understand why that person is like that and why you have to react to that person in that manner, why that person rubs you off the wrong way. You need to ask yourself those questions so that when that person comes again, you are not reacting, you are responding because you have taken time to be proactive. To say, when this happens, this is how I'm going to respond to it.
Yeah, that's perfectly correct. I think I'll be able to
Yes.
work on those issues or the way you have explained issues so we can avoid further conflict.
Yes. I remember I will just give you a quick story. There was a young man, it was a driver that we had that nobody got along with in the bank. He was a terrible driver, I must confess. But a terrible personality, nobody got along with him, but he got along with one Hausa man called Kabiru. Kabiru he would do anything for Kabiru. So I asked Kabiru one question. I said, Kabiru, how do you handle this person? Why is it that he's so terrible with all the rest of us, but he's so good with you? And he listens to you, but he doesn't listen to anybody. And he said, oh, he treats him as if he's the best person, the best character. That's the way he treats him. That he's the sweetest person, the nicest person. He treats him like that, treats him like a human being. And that guy responded, and I took something from that. How do you also treat that person? Can you treat the person better to get a better response?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay with the question?
Yes, thanks very much. Yes, I think I've learned a lot, and I will be able to actually put into practice actually to see how I'll be able to navigate very strongly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. John. We'll move on to Damilola, after which I need to see some questions on the chat. No one is asking questions. I haven't seen any yet. But I have one that I want to ask you, Ma, because now he has written his question a long time ago. So let's have Damilola. Let's have Damilola go with you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
I
can hear you very clearly.
I want to ask a question that if you're in an environment, in environment that they see others more effective than you, that they pick others more than you, that they do not see you as like effective person. They see you an ineffective person. How will you feel? What will you do as a person?
If they see me as ineffective, I'll walk up to my boss and I'll find out from him exactly what am I doing wrong. Okay, I'll walk up straight up to him and find out, and I'll listen with an open mind. Do you understand?
Okay, like for example, now maybe we are asked to do a particular task, and instead of calling all of us, they just call two. They just call two person, and they did not mention my own name. They just mentioned two person to do that task. So they just say, "Yeah, you come and join them." So that kind of attitude, how will you feel?
I will walk up to them. But you see, sometimes you are just imagining things in your mind. And when you imagine and you react based on what is going on in your mind, you are not effective. You understand? So I will go and have a open discussion and say, look, I would like to know what my strengths and my weaknesses are so that I can improve. Can you tell me? Do you understand? And then you listen with an open mind. I don't listen that this person is just trying to put me down. Person just, do you understand? No, don't do that. Just have an open mind. And then go back and work on those areas that they talked about. Do you understand? Because you might not be saying it. And then ask them that when you give work, can I volunteer? Sometimes I just want to be part of it. Do you get it? So you don't always have to be waiting to be called upon before you do it, before you roll up your sleeves and teach it. Yeah.
Thank you. I understand that.
Thank you, Damilola.
Yes,
ma'am. Okay. Somebody wants this. Can they get a copy of the recorded lecture? That is for the moderator. Can they get the slide?
Yes.
That will be, already has the slide.
Yeah, that will be shared across at the end of this session. Please, we have the poll. I'm sure it should appear on your screen. Do help us attend to that so that we can get your feedback on this session. So I actually would like to take a question that I saw very early in the lecture about emotional intelligence. I think it came from an individual named Martins Opera, and I actually liked that question. So he was talking about, when you talked about men being able to show their emotions, how the society sort of frowns at men who show emotions. But this, the individual was asking if there's a thin line between sharing emotions and crying. Like basically, how does a woman respect a man after he shows all that emotion? So it still goes back to say that maybe the society has given a wrong impression about how men should react, or maybe there's a way women would perceive men if they have to show their emotions. So that was a question that was asked earlier. So I don't know if you can probably take, and besides, that question was someone who asked the question before him. It's about the same thing they are both asking, whether it's okay for a man to show emotions, and if they do, they may be disrespected. How then do they manage that? So why would you take that? Maybe we'll have some more comment in the comment section.
Okay. First and foremost, self-awareness. That's where it comes back to self-awareness. Who are you? What do you want? Where are you going? That also affects the way you respond to a lot of things. How self-aware are you? Because you see, if you are not so self-aware, people will, and society will turn you everywhere. A lot of people have bad marriages, not because they are bad people, but because they believe what the society has told them. Deliverance is the greatest deliverance you can ever have in this life. Is deliverance from what people will say, what will people say. You can only be delivered from that when you are strong internally yourself. You are very self-aware. So you can even create boundaries. If you keep dancing to what everybody says, you will never be happy. You always feel that there's something missing, there's something wrong, because you're not being yourself. You're not owning who you are, you're not thriving. So what will I say about, first and foremost, it starts with the way women are viewed in society. That's why they tell a man, you are behaving like a woman. What does that mean? No, seriously, what exactly does it mean? Or you see somebody driving and say, now woman. It's a deep disrespect for womanhood that we have in this part of the world. The deep disrespect that has been passed down from generation to generation, that you have just accepted as the norm. It is not the norm. It is also affecting your relationships. It's the reason why a man does not want to have a female boss. They are too emotional. What do you mean by that? Like I told you, every decision, we are all emotional beings. We all have emotions. Whether you deny them or you fight them, they are there. They are data. They are advices. They are signals to you. So the first and the foremost is to relearn and unlearn all that you have been taught. That if you cry, it means that you are behaving like a woman. It is only women that cry. That is a lie. Men have emotions. You lose a child, you will cry. You have your first child, you will cry. It is normal. Accept it as normal. And be delivered from what people will say. Because as you hone your self-awareness, you become more self-aware, the more confident you will be to be yourself, to be comfortable in your own skin. You will know exactly where you are going in life and what is valuable to you. And you know that all those kind of talk are not the kind of thing you should be listening to. I don't know if I have, it takes courage to go against the tide. It takes courage. But when you are self-aware, you become more courageous. And so you can say to them, yeah, call me a woman rapper if you like. I love my wife. Call me a woman if you like. I felt it and I cried. And if you don't like it, that's your business.
Thank you.
Did I answer it?
Thank you so much. For me, you answered it perfectly for me. I think we got another question, which I will take. Then I'll take one more last live question so that we can get going. I don't see it anymore, but I think someone was asking, and this is very important. If the working environment becomes toxic for you, because you're unable to manage yourself emotionally, do you leave? Do you quit that job? Or you just keep trying to manage yourself emotionally? That is actually a very important question, because I've been in that situation before, where you just felt the environment became toxic. Is it a matter of trying to manage? Okay, that's him. I think I've seen Moyiwi Olumude, sorry for not pronouncing your name properly. So he's saying, my question is, how can an employee manage his or emotions in a toxic working environment? Do you advise the employee remains or resigns? So that's the question. Before I take one more, then we call it a day.
Okay, if you stay in a toxic environment and you cannot express yourself in that environment, it's going to affect you. Bit by bit, you will lose your self-confidence, you will lose your self-concept. You will no longer know who you are. The longer you stay in a toxic environment, that is bound to happen. You lose yourself. You begin to think that you don't even know anything anymore. That's the truth. So I would say, find an environment in which you can thrive. And people will tell you, oh, there's no work, the economy is in recession. It depends on what you believe. If you choose to believe that, you will never ever aspire for anything better. But because in this same economy, people are getting rich. In this same economy, people are getting jobs. You must believe in yourself very strongly. And you must be willing to do the hard work. Because I was telling somebody, to get and get a new job is not easy. You must know it is hard work. Set your mind that it is hard work from the beginning and go at it. But if you stay in a toxic environment for a long time and you are not, you don't understand how to put up emotional shields, you will lose your self-concept. It will happen. It's like eroding your self-concept, like water. Erosion, washing it away, bit by bit, over time. So it is imperative that you change that environment. Find an environment in which you can thrive. Even when you put up emotional shields, it's usually only for a period of time. Emotional shields is not allowing the things that are around you to affect you internally. And another thing I want to say about problems or things that you experience in life, if you always think about it in terms of I'm the victim, it happened to me, you will not be able to rise above it. But if you know that it happened for you to make you who you are, while you are here, it's helping you to become somebody better. Maybe you would have been a very nice person if you were not in that toxic environment. Do you understand? So it's developing you, it's strengthening you. You'll be able to respond better if you know that everything that's happening is for you, but not to you in life generally. Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to say a very big thank you to you, Ma.
I have a quick comment.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I thought I should weigh in on since I'm the man here, let me talk about men crying.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So people cry out of pain or out of joy.
Yeah.
It's an expression of emotions.
Yeah.
And men are human beings. They express their emotions too in different ways. So there's nothing wrong in a man crying. Absolutely nothing wrong.
Thank you.
In fact, crying is, when people are mourning, they are grieving, sometimes it's a therapy. I don't know if some of you know that grief can kill. When somebody loses a loved one, sometimes they die out of grief, out of pain. And when you bottle up that grief, it can even hurt you as a person. So if you feel like crying to let out that grief, let out that pain, it's fine. I lost my own brother 17 years ago in a plane crash. It was sudden. I was with him on a Friday. He died on Saturday. And he was the closest human being to me. But do you know the interesting thing? For his own death, I didn't cry. It took me 17 years to cry over my brother's death. All right? So you'll be surprised. Why did I not cry? That was the emotion. It was a different feeling I had. When I lost my brother, what I felt was that, you know what? I need to stand by his family. So I was determined to stand by his family. So I didn't cry. I was brave. But 3 weeks later, I lost my father and I cried. My father was 80. So why? So if you feel like crying, please cry. Don't be ashamed of it. There's nothing wrong with it as a man. If you are happy and you want to cry out of joy, please cry. If you want to go and do it indoors, you can do it, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm a man. I cry sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Igwan. Thank you so much. I'm happy that a man has said it. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. A lot of men here cry over football, Manchester United or Nigeria losing. So I'm sure crying is welcome. So at this, we need to call it.
Ronaldo was crying on the way out. So.
Exactly. So I want to thank you, Ma, for this opportunity, for the privilege to have you speak today. Unfortunately, we'll be unable to take questions. Please attend to our polls in the chat session. All questions will be sent to our special guest speaker today, and you get all your answers for the questions that you require answers for. So again, we want to say a very, very big thank you to our speaker today for the privilege to come here and educate us more about emotional intelligence. I was actually really educated, and I'll definitely follow you on social media. I'm sure a lot of people will, and then from there we can see more of you and then attend to more of your sessions. So I'm going to hand over to my able Madam Eoma to continue the session. Thank you so much for the privilege.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Sopriye. Thank you so much as always. I'd just like everybody to know that the very first soft skills training that we had, Mrs. Agodo was part of it. She was part of the team that came together to actually curate this soft skills training by the Kaiser Foundation for Social Development. And we say we are very grateful, we'll always be grateful for everything that you do for the foundation and for the young people. We're going to dive straight into the next session. And the next session, we're going to be talking about professional ethics and morals. I don't know if Mrs. Agodo has our time today. If you do, please don't go offline. But
no, I have to. I'm so sorry. I have to.
You have to. Okay. I suspected because I know you're always very busy. So when you give us your time, we are very grateful. So thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. So we are diving straight into professional ethics and morals. And this is going to be an interesting session. And I'll tell you guys for two reasons. One, this is one session that always repeats itself at every soft skills training that we have had, and is a very important session. Now, our facilitator for today is currently engaged at a federal government event, which came in, very suddenly, but he could not leave us hanging. So what he has done is he has done a recording for us for this session, and he has promised that he would attempt to join us so that he can answer some of the questions that we have himself live. So the tech team, please, can you put on that session so that we can start immediately, Mr. Pampa's session. So I would introduce Mr. Pampa very briefly and very quickly to everyone. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Please confirm if you can.
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so thank you. So like I was saying, Mr. Pampa is one of our all-time returning facilitators, and he talks to us about professional ethics and morals, something that is very needed. He is currently the CEO and co-founder of the Convention on Business Integrity, CBI, and he's concerned with issues of public accountability and transparency. And this is aimed at promoting ethical business practices in the private sector and in the integrity organization, an anti-corruption research and advocacy organization. He's currently the project director, Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, Siemens Support, to which aims to build stronger business collective action among port users in Nigeria, stronger government compliance, and then build public-private arrangements for oversight of compliance with the port standard operating procedure. So he's a compliance expert, he's an ethics expert. He was also the lead trainer of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, that's NIPC, and he has been training for top management on agricultural investment opportunities and ethics in 2019. He's also a project director on the Christopher Collade Lecture, and this is the 8th year on business integrity. This is a lecture series that aims to continue to ensure that contemporary issues as it affects the business community as well as the economy are brought to the fore. I'm sure some of us are aware of the Christopher Collade Lecture. If you are not, please Google it after this session. For the last 24 years, he has designed and implemented anti-corruption initiatives in Africa, working on very high-profile sensitive assignments, and he's the author of several research reports on different aspects of governance. Mr. Apampa is extremely busy and sought after because of this area that is very key in our society now, but he ensures that he's always available to impact the young people because he's very passionate about it. He's very passionate about ethics in the private and the public sector. So without further ado, I will require the tech team to start the session so that we can, go ahead. I would also suggest that everyone is very attentive to this session, because as the session goes along, take down your questions and then we'll take them at the end of the session. If Mr. Apampa is available, if not, we'll also have him answer the questions and send back. Tech team, over to you, please. Please confirm in the chat section that you can hear and see. Okay, I can see, but I can't hear. So everybody is saying they can hear and see, but I can see, I can't hear, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so
good morning, everyone, and you're welcome. My name is Soji Apampa, and I welcome you to this session on professional ethics and morals. Normally, this is a presentation that I will do in person and be with you, but unfortunately, there's a clash and I can't be with you this morning. So I'm forced to record it and to share with you. I hope it will not take away from the enjoyment of the subject of the day. Okay, so I'd like to take us through our context. Let's look at what context many of us operate in and why we should even bother with this thing called ethics. I will be using Nigeria as an example because most of my work is based in Nigeria, and I'd like you to also reflect about what is happening in your own country. Then I'd like us to look at what these professional ethics are that we're talking about, look at the issue of character, integrity, and morals. look at the issue of conflicts of interest, ethical dilemmas, and how we resolve them, and then for any final words that we may have. What are your expectations for today? Go on, put something in the chat box. Let's hear your opinion. What do you think you can get? Came to your mind when you first heard of this topic, ethics and morals? Okay, from time to time, I'm going to ask you to participate in that way, sharing what's on your mind, and our real life monitors and facilitators will be able to respond. Although sadly, as I said, I will not be with you in person at the time. Okay, so let's explore our context. What will drive our personal ethics and morals? What will drive our personal ethics and morals? There will be certain barriers and certain drivers. Institutionally, in Africa, we have found that how we win and retain business does not receive sufficient regulatory attention to warrant change. So many businesses don't even bother. They just do what they like. Also, buyers of our goods and services, not many of them actually require ethics, integrity as a precondition for engaging with us. And finally, acting with integrity, many have heard about it. Some people have dared to behave that way, but it's seen by many as a moral, but perhaps impractical, nice to have, given our environment. So until many say, until they see something external to our environment requiring that, then they're not going to bother, because many of the authorities within our context in Africa don't require it. Or if there are a new set of potential clients who require integrity as a condition for engaging with us, then we'll change. That's what some of us say. Or, you know, we would like to see the prospects. What are the benefits for making the investments in time and money that will be required to build compliance? It costs money. It isn't cheap to be compliant. To behave how you like, anyhow, that is the cheapest form. Or at least that is what many people actually think. So what motivates us to do the right thing? What do you think? Why would people do the right thing? Quickly, let's put something in the chat box. Why would anybody do the right thing? Okay, let's see what examples you're coming up with. Why do people do the right thing? Okay, so why would people do right? Kohlberg, in his cognitive model of developmental theory, actually came up with 6 odd reasons why people would do the right thing. And the top one is to avoid punishment. I wonder how many of us got that. The next one is to take advantage of rewards. Then the third, down that chain, is to keep up with the Joneses, to impress our circle of friends. The fourth is to be seen as law-abiding. The fifth is for the common good of the majority, and the sixth is in order for the common good of the majority, or to ensure justice for all. But remember the context in which we are operating, where we have weak institutions. So who gets punished? That's the question. Who gets punished for doing wrong? Usually, it's those who end up on the wrong side of the people who are in power. Who is able to take advantage of rewards? Again, the rewards are for those who are close to the centers of power. Then the rest is to impress your circle of friends and so on. So the real reward and punishment depends on how close you are, especially when you have weak institutions, there's weak enforcement, and this creates a negative spiral of negative incentives that feeds on itself. Because then everybody starts to do the same wrong, and they feel that that's the only way in which to survive in that environment. There is a theory, Merton's strength theory, that says that what leads individuals to deviant acts like corruption is dependent on the way that society deals with two issues: the means of getting ahead in society and the ends. What can I achieve in my life? How can I achieve it? What goals are strongly emphasized by society, and what means is society emphasizing that you can use to achieve it? Today, in a place like Nigeria, many people have the goal to get rich as quickly as they can. Many parents will tell their children that the way to do that is to make sure you go to school, you do well in school, get good grades, come out, get a job, you will do well in life. But the children are saying, oh yeah, that's not how so-and-so next door has gotten mine. Before, when they had nothing, today they have a lot. And they have a lot more than us. And I know it wasn't because they went to school. So what are the means? When the goals and means emphasized by society are not accessible to most people in society, then they start to respond in the way that Merton has come up with in his strength theory. So he says deviance occurs as a result of the dissonance, the lack of congruence between social reality and our expectations. So how well does society manage the expectations of individuals in the face of rapid social change? So some people conform. They accept the goals that are given by society. They also accept the prescribed means, and they hope for the best. These are increasingly the fewer members of society. Many get innovative, especially amongst our young people. They accept the goals, but not necessarily the means. So they strive to obtain success by taking advantage of illegal means available to them. So some of them will get involved in fraud, some of them will get involved in other schemes, anything that can give them a shortcut to obtain this success that they believe society is encouraging them to go for. Some abandon the goals, but keep the means. So some don't care whether or not they get rich quick. They just know that it's the right thing to do. They will go through the rituals, go through school, do whatever is asked of them. And they just concentrate on retaining what little they possibly gained, or they still have, in place of concentrating on a higher yield of success. So they just go with what they're given. Very few people go into ritualism. So already we've seen innovation is very attractive for quite a lot. There's also retreatism, unfortunately. Some abandon both the goals and the needs given by society. So people go on drugs, alcoholism, and so on. And the severely mentally ill function because their reactions to not being able to obtain success by legitimate means represses them from society. So people just opt out of what society is saying. Some completely rebel. They say, we don't care what society is saying, are the goals or the means. We make our own rules, and we're going to overthrow the current order. We're going to go our own way. So with all of these things, what are you now thinking about ethics and morals? Where are we going to place ethics and morals in our societies? Now, where is your society? Where do you think it is? Let's look at these dimensions. Libertarianism and egalitarianism. For example, libertarian societies believe, allow the markets, it's about the survival of the fittest. The markets will soon set a price. Those who can pay, pay. Those who cannot pay, well, too bad for you. At least those who are diligent will get by in society. Those who are not so diligent, well, who really cares? But egalitarian societies say, no, that's not the role of society. Society has to equalize between different groups in society. That no, we cannot bear a disparity in income and well-being between men and women, between old and young, you know, between people of a certain race and people of other races. That no, that is not on. Society should try to equalize between different groups in society. Those are egalitarian societies. But you have communitarian societies as well, who on top of egalitarianism believe that the assets and the endowments that have been given to a certain country or location do not belong to the people of this generation only, that it also belongs to generations unborn. And so countries like Norway, Sweden, a lot of the Scandinavian countries keep a special fund and put money aside for future generations. Well, it's certainly not what we do in Africa. We don't keep money aside for future generations in the same way. Under a certain US president, the US was tending more towards libertarianism, where, you know, it's all about whoever could be supreme. And it was that supreme group that would then drive the direction in which society should go. I know under another president, it tended more towards egalitarianism. But there's one more that we haven't discussed, and that is the corporatist society. In a corporatist society, the direction of state policy is not really by ideology that the libertarians or the egalitarians or the communitarians have. It's really about which groups come together to take control of the state. So it would be power. Those put power together from business, government, civil society, labor, politicians, and so on. That if you know which groups have come together to wrest control of the state, then you can tell which direction state policy is going to go in. So it's more of giving an opportunity for a capture of the state and for the state to be taken in the direction of those groups that manage to capture the power. So the question is, where would you place your country today? Where would we place African society today? My guess is that we would be more somewhere between libertarian and corporatist. Do you agree? Do you agree? You can share your opinions, your feelings quickly in the chats and let us know. So with all of these issues I've talked about, given our context, should we really be bothering about professional ethics and morals? Does it matter at all? Consider this proposition. To the left is a photograph I took in a place called Dutse in northern Nigeria. I took that photograph a few years ago. Many people in that area of the country still live like this. And I know many people in Lagos to the right live like this. Meanwhile, on the left, they are totally an agrarian society. They depend on agriculture, but there's no food. Food imports into many African countries has been growing year on year. So what is creating this scenario of lots of agriculture without food? Shelter without homes. The picture to the right, some allege, is a former ruler's house in Nigeria. That's what his dining room looks like. I've never been there. I don't know. But I know many people who have houses that approximate this kind of opulence. But I also know that to the left, there are many areas in Lagos and around Nigeria that are still like this. Why do we have such a big housing gap? 18 million housing units is the gap. And that gap is growing by 2 million units annually. What is it like in your country? So people have shelter without homes. What about clothing without warmth? Some are warm, some have good clothing, others don't. In a place like Nigeria, the textile industry was killed by cheap imports from China. It was allowed by some people. How come it was allowed? How did it happen? How did it happen? We have schooling without learning. Some are able to attend schools where they're able to use all sorts of learning aids, and others are in schools where they're crammed and jam-packed into a tight environment. What kind of learning takes place under those conditions? According to the British Council, about 1/5 of the world's 60 million out-of-school children are in Nigeria. And the children that are able to access schools typically learn very little. So we have a lot of schooling without learning. What do you think is responsible for that? Why are there no classrooms? Why are there not enough teachers? Why are there not enough teaching aids? What has happened to all the money? What do you think? These are crowds to the left awaiting free medical care. But when our leaders go abroad for medical care, they stay in hospital rooms like this. But here are crowds of people on a free medical mission event. This is a real situation that we're looking at. So we have medicine without healing. It's estimated that no more than 35% of Nigerians have access to modern healthcare services. Children are growing without maturing. Also, we know 40% of the body's dry matter is protein. Intake of animal protein is at present only 4.82 grams per person, as against 35 grams, as recommended by the Food and Agri Organization. So many children are stunted, many are not maturing, and they will never fully develop. This is a situation that is happening in many places around Africa. Why is this? We also have democracy without much of a choice. An elite aristocracy seems to be running most of our countries, and it's a revolving door. Whether they are in business or they're in government or they're in something else, they just revolve, the door keeps going round and round, it's the same people. We do not have much of a choice. So how can you have democracy without choice? of governance without peace. You have a constituted government, duly elected government, but you don't have peace because so many people are disenfranchised. Revenues, oil revenues in a place like Nigeria, but without justice. One half of the country live like kings. The people from whose land these revenues are coming, they live like paupers. So how do we square this? A concentration of wealth and economic power in the hands of a few to the detriment of the underprivileged and common people of Africa. Or you have resource wealth without prosperity, expenditures without service. So what exactly is this professional ethics and morals? Is it possible if people have been behaving professionally, utilizing the national budgets professionally, acting ethically, will we be in a situation where we're having schooling without learning, children growing without maturing? Is that possible? So what are these professional ethics? A system of moral principles, the rules of conduct that guide your actions are your ethics. So it's not enough to say, oh, it's a group of principles agreed on by a people from an area. But then that is their ethics. Because there's also honor among thieves. Thieves do not take lightly to being stolen from. If you're a member of the group of thieves and you steal from the group, I'm sure the group know how to deal with their own that steals from them. There's honor among thieves. So just because they have a set of rules that guides them doesn't mean that they are ethical. So what is considered good ethics, therefore, is what guides you with respect to what actions you consider to be right or wrong, and with respect to the goodness and badness of your motives. So I hope you will agree with me that applying personal ethics can be difficult. It's not straightforward. Like I said, it's a whole system of moral principles, rules of conduct that guide your actions. They guide you with respect to what actions are right or wrong, and with respect to what is good or bad from your motives. So again, just dealing with that as an individual could be pretty hairy. What about dealing with it within an organization? It can be even more difficult, is what it is. So the question is, what is business ethics therefore? Remember, we said it's a system of moral principles that guide your actions and so on. So can you guess what business ethics is all about? And professional ethics, what that will be as well? So it's a system of moral business principles. In this case, the rules of conduct that guide your actions in a business environment. So business ethics guides you with respect to what business actions are right or wrong, and with respect to your motives as well, whether they're good or bad. So the fundamental principle of business ethics is fair and honest business dealings. Professional ethics in the public sector, for instance, is moral principles for the public sector, rules of conduct that guide people's actions in civil firms. So public sector ethics guides you with respect to what public administration actions are right or wrong, and with respect to the goodness or badness of your motives. So the fundamental principle of the public sector as a steward to the public, that's what matters in this case. Okay, so what is the crux of the matter now? ethics and business, the set of morals, standards, rules, laws, principles, and so on that actually control your choices and behavior in business. Those are your ethics in business. If your behavior and choices in business are consistently bad, it must be coming acceptable. They must be emanating from a place of good ethics. So you cannot be behaving one way and have another set of principles or ethics. It doesn't matter what you say, it's what you actually do that demonstrates your business ethics. Okay, so let's take a brief break, and let me tell you some stories, because some would wonder whether it is okay. For instance, we decide because we're in an environment that is constrained, that has a lot of difficulties, should we be held to the same ethical standards as people who operate in environments that are less difficult to operate in? Should there be a difference? Go on, tell us in the chat box. Do you think that it is easier to be ethical in the US than it will be to be ethics? Would you trust doctors more in the US than you would trust them in a place like Nigeria? What's the difference? Why is it that you can take a person from Nigeria or from Africa and put them somewhere else and they behave very differently to how they behaved at home? What do you think? Why don't you share with us in the chat? What actually controls our choices and our behavior in this business environment? I'll give us a minute more. Okay, great. So let me ask you this question. Are ethics relative or absolute? How do you determine what is good or bad? Remember, I kept saying it's about the goodness or the badness of your motives. You know, it is what is right for you to do in a certain environment. You know, I said it's a system of moral principles, the rules of conduct that guide your actions so that you can make the right choices and so on. So is what is right in Nigeria the same as what is right in the US? How do you determine what is good and acceptable or bad behavior in business? When people are more likely to set standards in relation to their limitations. Otherwise, why would you set standards that you cannot achieve? So you have to set standards in relation to your limitations and constraints if you're to have any hope of achieving those standards. So let me give you a few examples. The story was told of a minister in a Scandinavian country who went to the grocery store, found out that she didn't bring her personal credit card with her, but she had the government issued credit card. So she paid for her groceries, went back to the office, issued a check immediately, and paid it back. Was what she did right or wrong, good or bad? What do you think? Share with us in the chat. What do you think? She borrowed the money, paid it back as soon as she got back to her desk. because she didn't take her own credit card along. She had the wrong purse or something. Now, in that Scandinavian country, the story goes that she was fired. Why was she fired? Abuse of public funds. In a place like Nigeria, if she paid for her groceries with a government-issued card and paid it back, what do you think will happen to her? When she pays it back immediately, she will probably make headlines as an honest minister. And the same story will be told, but this time with her being painted as honest, not her being fired for abuse of public funds. Why do you think there is this difference? Is it because it's a Scandinavian country? Let me give you another example. Stories told of lawmakers in a southern African country who were able to buy Mercedes-Benz Jeeps at a huge discount. Note that I said they bought. They took out their own money, they paid. They bought those Jeeps, those SUVs, as it were, with their own money, only that they got a very handsome discount. They were prosecuted in this African country. They were prosecuted and eventually they were jailed. Why? Abuse of office. Because they received discount levels that ordinary people in society could not receive. And they received it by virtue of the office they were holding. Therefore, it was an abuse of their office. Now, in a place like Nigeria, if they were given those Mercedes-Benz SUVs for free, they got everything for free without paying a penny, do you think anybody's going to go to jail? So why do we have this big difference? So that's a Southern African country I've told you about, and the other is a Scandinavian country. Now imagine that you're a big businessman in Nigeria, and you have your partners from Scandinavia and from Southern Africa arriving at the airport. You send the car to receive them. The car meets them on the tarmac. They don't go through immigration formalities. In fact, somebody just collects their passport, they get into the limo, something is done, the whole thing is done, it's brought to them where they are, their luggage is brought to them where they are. And you as the big man, after a while, you're surprised that instead of your foreign partners being impressed, they were actually repulsed. What do you think is happening here? Have you ever been with many people in a crowded, sweaty room, then had cause to go out, and then come back in after a while, and you could perceive a lot of the odor of sweat in that room, but everyone else in that room is blissfully ignorant of the stench that is building up in that room? That is what happens when you make just yourself the reference and you do not compare notes with anyone else, and you don't realize that you have begun to stink while others are enjoying fresh air. When they come in contact with you, they are repulsed. Professional ethics, because ethics are neither absolute nor universal, people agree a minimum set of acceptable standards as a general guide to making an understanding of ethics more uniform. So if you're going to call yourself a medic, there is a standard associated with being a medical doctor, a minimum standard. So long as you can meet that minimum standard, you can be called a doctor. In some countries where they have little limitations and very little constraints, they may be superfluous. They may have the abilities that are way beyond the minimum acceptable. They're still doctors. And you can have people who operate in the thickest jungles anywhere, but can meet the minimum standards of ethics required of a doctor. They are still a doctor. Once you're not able to meet that minimum standard, they would probably call you a paramedic, not a doctor. And in the case of lawyers, they will call you a paralegal, not a lawyer, because you cannot meet all the standards and requirements that are required of a lawyer. So they will differentiate. So for people who give excuse that because my context is challenging, so therefore I, as a professional, I will cut corners. Well, guess what? They have betrayed their profession. They're no longer professionals because there is a certain minimum acceptable standard that should be associated with a professional. Once you fall below it, then you're no longer a professional. You're something less than a professional. It has nothing to do with what tools you're given, how much you're paid, whether you are recognized for your work or not. It's got nothing to do with that. So although ethics are neither absolute nor universal, professionals have codes, they have standards which spell out the minimum acceptable standards of behavior to be associated with anyone who would be a professional in that particular sector. So once we understand that that is how it works, then we know that we cannot use our pay or our conditions of service as justification for engaging in bribery and corruption, for instance. That is unacceptable for any professional. We do not use our professional badge to extort money from people. That is no longer professional. So it might not be absolute nor universal, but there is still a minimum acceptable standard. So for you to be a government official, like I gave in the case from Scandinavia, there is an expectation in public service that you do not abuse public property. You do not. You are a steward. Remember the definition we gave for professional ethics in the public sector. We said it's a system of moral principles for the public sector, the rules of conduct that guide people's actions in civil service, and that the fundamental principle of the public sector is as a steward to the public. So there is a principle of stewardship. That is the minimum acceptable standard of behavior. We said for business, there is also a minimum standard, and that the fundamental principle of business ethics is fair and honest dealings in business. So if it's fair and honest dealings, you cannot incorporate corruption and extortion and bribery. That is no longer fair and honest dealing. So to be a professional, you have to be consistently compliant with that standard. Okay, so after that very, very heavy slide, let's discuss something much like that. Okay, it's about apples and barrels. You know, it's said that if you put good apples in a good barrel, then you have a good chance of preserving them. And if you put good apples in a bad barrel, then it's no wonder that they go bad. Or you put bad apples in a good barrel, it's not going to help the bad apples, they're already bad. And you put bad apples in a bad barrel, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Good. In your country, are citizens good apples or bad apples? Put it in the chat. Are citizens good apples or bad apples? I'll give us all like a minute. Good apples or bad apples? The citizens of your country. Yes, I'm sure some people are saying good apples, some are saying bad apples. Many, if you're from Nigeria, are saying bad apples. But some may be saying mixture of good and bad apples. Not so. That society is made up of good and bad apples. Good. So question number 2, your country, your society, is it a good barrel or a bad barrel? What do you think? Again, share with us in the chat. Your country, is it a good barrel or a bad barrel? What do you think? Okay, now in this case, many people will say, oh, my country is a good barrel. It is the bad apples that are making things bad. Or it is a bad barrel. Yes, there are some good apples, but the country is a bad barrel. But many will agree on mixture of good apples and bad apples in a society. And many may say that their country is a good barrel. What happens when you put a mixture of good apples and bad apples, irrespective of the type of barrel? What will happen? All the apples will get rotten. What is another word for things going rotten? Is things getting corrupted. There will be a lot of corruption, and the bad ones will corrupt the good ones. So you are going to have to do something in order to stop this badness from infecting everything. Now, how do you deal with that? If you get a loaf of bread straight from the oven, put it on the table, go away for a week, come back, what will happen? It will decay. Pluck an apple, ripe apple from the tree, put it on the table, go away for a week, come back, it will tend to decay. So there's something in engineering that is called entropy. That everything, if you leave them to themselves, are going to tend towards decay. It's a natural order for things to move towards corruption without you doing anything. So it actually requires energy and effort to preserve things from getting corrupted. So the first energy is that which is required to separate the good apples from the bad apples. You've got to do something about the bad apples in society, which is why you have correctional services. You've got to deal with the bad apples in order to preserve the good apples. The good apples, you've got to put energy, maybe you refrigerate them, put them in an environment that will help them thrive, so they will remain good for as long as possible. You've got to do that. You need energy always to preserve things in a system from going towards corruption. So, let's move on to the boiled frog syndrome. The story is told of some experiment. Now, I'm not even sure if it's a fictitious experiment or if it's true, but Google it. You'll find that it's a thing. And the story goes that If you put a frog in a big beaker of water and you heat it up ever so slowly, so there's no rapid change in temperature, the frog will adapt, because reptiles take on the temperature of their surroundings. It will adapt, and it will adapt some more. And it will keep adapting until it is too weak and unable to jump out. And eventually it will allow itself to be boiled alive. In many of our countries, we actually exhibit as citizens the boiled frog syndrome. So what happens in a place like Nigeria when thieves, maybe there are 7 houses in the cul-de-sac, and thieves manage to steal from the first 6 houses, but somehow they ran out of time or ran out of luck and did not reach the 7th house. You know what the 7th house is going to do? They're going to go and rejoice and give testimonies and do thanksgiving and be very happy that it didn't happen to them. It's very difficult to find a group of people that will come together to ensure that that never happens again. Instead, they will make their fence a lot higher. They will double the locks on their doors. They will increase their own systems rather than work with the government to try and solve the problem for everyone. So the situation gets worse and worse, and we build ever bigger walls around our houses. We have electric fences. We put layer upon layer upon layer of security, but society gets worse and worse at the same time. And we thank God that we can afford the security and therefore we're safe. Not realizing that when you have good apples mixing with bad apples, eventually everyone is going to go bad. Think about that. Think about that for a second. Okay, so everything I've been talking about has boiled down to making an ethical choice. So how do you make an ethical choice? So let me introduce you to the ethical choice framework. This framework simply says that we acknowledge that for you to have any passion in whatever it is that you're going to do, for you to be able to sustain it, it must be in your self-interest. That is understood. But is it still ethical if your self-interest will damage the interest of others? So the important thing to make sure is that in our pursuit of our self-interest, we don't damage the interest of others, and the results of what we're doing still works for the common good. So it must be in my interest, cannot damage the interest of other people, and still in the common good. So if, God forbid, I'm a thief, and I'm stealing in my own self-interest, but that self-interest is damaging the interest of others. That's why there's agriculture without food. That's why there's education and schooling without learning. So I'm damaging the interest of others. And certainly, any society that has children that are growing but not maturing is not in our common good. So what I wanted to do in my self-interest damages the interest of others and does not result in the common good. So it is not ethical. So what can I do that is ethical? I can provide goods and services that helps people improve their hygiene. Yes, it's in my self-interest because I make money from it. I'm not damaging the interest of others. Actually, I'm aiding the interest of others. And the result is for the common good. Therefore, my being involved in such trade is not unethical. So you understand that having an ethical choice framework helps, but I can simplify it a bit further. So we can look at legality as a starting point, but we need to go further. What we are planning to do, is it criminal or you know, is it something that will be a liability? You know, is it something that helps us just meet society's requirements, or are we being compliant with it? Apart from it being legal, is it the compliant behavior? Is it the responsible thing to do? Is it generally acceptable? All of those things we can put together in a decision matrix. So is it compliant? Is it legal? Will I be breaking any rules or regulations? Is it against the policy of my organization or company? Is it the responsible thing to do? How will it affect other parties? What if everybody were doing the same thing? Will that damage the common good? Is it against my principles? Is it generally acceptable? How will it look on the pages of the newspaper or YouTube or Facebook? Will I be ashamed to tell my peers? What will my family think when I tell them? And so on. All of these things can help us make an ethical decision. Once it fails on any one of these, then that is a red flag for you, that it might not be an ethical choice you're about to make. So even if it passes on compliance and responsibility, but it's not the generally acceptable thing, you may want to think about it again. Or if it's compliant and generally acceptable, but it's not the responsible thing to do, or it's responsible and so on. This helps you to decide whether what you're planning to do is ethical or not. I hope you will agree with me at this point that ethics in business requires effort. A lot of effort is required to identify and isolate the bad apples, to fix the problems with the barrels. So it is easy to make selfish choices, but it's also easy to make selfless choices, but selfless choices are not sustainable. Ethical choices require extra effort to preserve the self-interest, your self-interest, the interest of others, without damaging the common good. You know, as we have said, doing nothing and going with the flow is not an option, because we will become like the boiled frog. Ethics and standards slide and decay without effort to act in the common good. So if we do not put in that effort, things will go from bad to worse. So we can't do nothing. We have to do something. But incentives can reduce the effort. So if we're looking for universal ethics like in business, we have to have a clear belief system with punishment and rewards for good or bad behavior. When there's clear punishment and reward, as we learned from Colbert in the beginning, as the reason why people would do the right thing, then it becomes more automatic for people to do the right thing, because they know if they do wrong, there's a swift and present punishment. If they do right, there's clear reward for it. And that's how many people actually train little children. You know, but we cannot go on based on that forever. Once we learn what is good and bad, then we should follow it. So an environment created by a government through institutions with strong reward and punishment is another example of how to keep these rewards in place. Then also contracts. For instance, I sign up with a big company like MTN Nigeria, or another big company, I don't know, like Jumia, and I'm a small company, I want to be in the supply chain. My whole business depends on complying with the rules that they have put in place. So do you know why I'm going to comply? Because it's in my self-interest. And because if I did the wrong thing, they will find me out. And when they find me out, they're going to kick me out. And once they kick me out, I won't have any business. Then I'm going to do my utmost to be compliant, because I need the business. So contracts between parties also that stipulates a code of conduct and aligns incentives between the parties is another example of how to reduce the effort involved in reducing corruption. So I hope you agree with me that all of this requires personal leadership, and not just any kind of personal leadership, a moral leadership. We need an ethical leader, a visibly ethical person who sends a consistent message. So being a moral person alone is not sufficient. You can be moral for yourself, but how you cannot be moral for your organization. You have to put in an ethical framework for your organization. So your own morality is not enough. You have to ensure that there is a system of ethics in your organization. Employees are often far away from executives, so they look to their supervisors and executives for guidance, also on issues of ethics. And even peers look to their peers who appear to be, more forward-looking. They look at them, look at what they're doing as well. So not just superiors and subordinates, even peers influence each other. So you can exercise leadership wherever you are within an organized society. To be an ethical leader, you must be a moral manager, managing your own morality and managing the morality around you. So you be a moral manager by managing the ethics around you, and be a moral person by managing your own personal ethics. So if you are weak in managing your own morality, and you're weak in getting the people around you to do the right thing, you will go down as an unethical leader. But if you are able to manage your own morality and not do the wrong thing, but you cannot manage the people around you and make sure that they also do the right thing, then you are an ethically passive leader. We have an example of a particular minister who was sold a dummy by the civil servants under her, and they got her to sign a document to share some money that she didn't believe in. The story goes that she refused to take any of it, but she signed the document and they shared the money. She was fired. Even in a place like Nigeria, she was fired. I don't know of any other civil servant that got any retribution over it. But because she was ethically passive, she suffered for it. It was Margaret Thatcher who used to say that it's better for you to be on the left or on the right of a highway. Because if you're in the middle, you're going to get hit by both sides. So you can't afford to be passive. You have to choose a side. Now, if you're strong in managing the morality of what is going on around you, then you are yourself a very weak person in terms of your personal morals, then you come across as hypocritical. Again, we had a leader in Nigeria who was responsible for the failed banks tribunal, did a lot in terms of cleaning up the private sector. And the private sector, many people were going into exile and so on because of the probes. But later we found out that Ross himself, $5 billion, $6 billion, and Nigeria is still repatriating money out of those $6 billion till tomorrow. So that leader is looking more hypocritical today than strong. As I've said, for you then to be an ethical leader, you have to manage your own morality strongly and manage the morality around you of what is happening in the environment around you very strongly for you to come off as an ethical leader. Remember, I mentioned so many times that to be ethical requires energy. And this is one of the areas in which you need to put in energy. You have to use up energy to keep your own morality and use up energy in ensuring that you are managing your environment and keeping the standards in your environment and becoming a strong moral manager at the same time. That is what leads to the ethical leadership. Okay, so do you have anything that you want to share? Anything, any reflections that you have that you want to share with the organizers at this point? Any comments you want to make? Any feedback on it? Now would be a good time to do so. Okay. Just as an aside, I will share a few things very quickly that you should understand how to manage people who disagree with you. It's very important because not everything is black and white when it comes to ethics. You don't know. You are trying your best to make a good decision, not a bad decision. You want to take the right decision, not the wrong decision. There will always be people who will come across as naysayers. Some will come across as traitors. Some will talk behind you and criticize you behind you. Some will criticize you to your face. It's good to know where to put them. You want to know those who have a strong desire for change and whose level of openness is also high. So welcome the naysayer. Or you need to learn to deal with the critics who don't really want change. They may be overt or covert, but they don't really want change. And you also need to know how to deal with the traitor. But the naysayer, you must always listen to, because the naysayer really wants change to happen as well, but maybe pointing you towards something that you may not have considered. So not everyone who doesn't agree with you should be shut up or cut down. It's good to know that. So listen to the naysayers. The critics you should ignore or silence. But the traitors, you should keep them very far from what you're doing because they will damage you if you're not careful. Then there are also some who are allies, some are friends, some are irritants, and some will act to block what you're trying to do. Again, within your sphere of influence, you need to understand who really has a desire for change and who has any influence on the change. If somebody doesn't want change to happen and has a high level of influence, then they could act as a blocker. You need to know how to sideline them from what you're trying to do. And those who have a high influence on change and also desire for change, you better know them as your allies. Bring them on board so that this journey of ethics becomes more bearable for you. Because like I said, left to themselves, everything moves towards decay, moves towards corruption. Without putting in some level of energy, it would decay. So you need to think about that. So what is your character, your integrity, and your attitudes towards morals? What do you bring to the table? So let's talk about character, integrity, and morals. I'm going to go very swiftly through this area because this will be standard stuff that I believe you already know. So what is integrity? It's freedom from deceit, from duplicity, self-delusions, adulteration, corruption. So, like we said, things left to themselves will decay. Integrity is part of keeping it. That energy put in to keep it from that decay is what preserves that integrity. So being morally right, following the right precepts, doctrines, etiquette, being complete, whole, skilled, polished. consistently doing the right things and doing things right. That is integrity. So a life of integrity, yes, you're who you say you are, confirmed, you do the right things and do things right even when no one is looking. You do what you say you will do, as and when promised. You're answerable to people in appropriate ways. You act ethically and to safeguard your credibility. You aim at distinction in quality and efficiency. Someone once said that there are two building blocks for a life of integrity. Number one, consistently making moral and ethical choices. And number two, consistently managing to keep a moral and ethical environment. I hope you've learned that from everything you said so far. So let's look at your character. It's your core nature, it's who you really are. It reflects your moral values. You use it for making moral and ethical choices. Some parts of your character are ingrained, but it can also be influenced by your beliefs, your attitudes, your abilities, your thought patterns, lifestyle, experiences, and so on. It's demonstrated by your actions. It's displayed in the choices you make. It's who you are when no one is looking. It follows you where you go. The Yorubas say, "Ifiniwa," meaning your character is like smoke. You can't hide it. It will seep through. It will come through the cracks. It's not left at the doorstep when you leave for work. Your character follows you everywhere. They also have another saying, the Yorubas, that is the person who threw the ashes, that the trail of ashes follows. If you've ever thrown out ashes, you will see how the wind seems to blow it in your direction. So it will follow you everywhere you go. You can't fake character, at least not for long. But you're not stuck with your present or past character, or you can change it over time by developing new habits and attitudes. And that is why I love this soft skills training, because it's showing us the opportunity to develop new habits and attitudes. So there will always be moral, ethical, and emotional struggles that will test your character. So you have to think about your character often, know the values and the principles you hold dear, have to listen to your conscience. Your conscience may be your biggest naysayer. Listen to your conscience. Know your moral and ethical boundaries. Watch the kind of influences that come into your life. Set the moral, ethical, and spiritual goals that strengthen your character. Strive to achieve balance in your life. So, time will test your character. Pressure will test your character. Your environment will test your character. Your basic drives, your sense of self-importance, the voice of society in your head, your inertia, your level of capacity or ignorance will test your character. The willingness to have a life that is free of duplicity, which is congruent, which means what I say mirrors what I do, authenticity, and so on. All of that is going to test your character. And on top of that, you will still face conflicts of interest and ethical dilemmas. A conflict of interest happens when your personal interests influence or appear to influence. So even the appearance appear to influence your ability to act in the best interest of your company or your group or your unit and so on. So professional dilemmas are often a conflict between two good values. It's not a choice between good and bad. If it was a simple choice between good and evil, many people will say, oh, I will stand on the side of good. against evil, that's easy for us to do. But when you have to choose between telling the truth and staying loyal to a friend, then you enter a big dilemma. Do I tell the truth and rat out my friend? Or do I stay loyal to my friend and I become a liar? And I hide the truth and I see the damage that the lie will cause somebody else. Which one am I going to choose? Will I try to satisfy myself and make sure that I get ahead, take a bit of the money that was really for the community, use it to get myself to go ahead? Well, self-development is good, it's not wrong, but can it be done at the expense of the community? Because community development is also good. So many people in government allow themselves to have that dilemma. But if your values are clear, you understand what your values are, and your values are ethical, you will resolve half of these dilemmas in the first place. Should I do what is right in the short term, but I know will be wrong in the long term? Should I go for justice, or should I plead for mercy? So very often, what sets you up in an ethical dilemma is a dilemma precisely because you're being asked to choose between two things that in and of themselves are not wrong or bad. Telling the truth can never be wrong. Being loyal can never be wrong. But when you're forced to choose one over the other, you have a dilemma. Okay? So, a few things that can give you a dilemma in the workplace. Do I employ my friend? Do I ask for my relation to be employed? What can I invest in? Do I invest based on knowledge, information that I picked up in the course of my work about my own company? Does it move me to make investments, to take advantage of the information that I gleaned? Or is that insider dealing? You know, competition, friends and family, how do I deal with that? Having significant financial interest somewhere else. How do I manage my side hustles? Using company time and resources. Selling in the workplace. Gifts and entertainment. When is a gift and no longer a gift? You know, and so on. Before I go to my final words, I would like to encourage us that we should spend some time on these, debating at least 2 or 3 of these things. How do we resolve the dilemmas that we'll find ourselves in? For example, with gifts and entertainment. In our culture, we do a lot of gift giving. But when does a gift stop being a gift and it starts to become a brand? When is that thin line between a gift and a brand? Can I sell things in the workplace? My own private business in the workplace? My side hustle? Is there a limit to what I can do? If I'm working in the construction industry and I'm employed by Construction Kaiser and I'm a structural engineer, am I selling my services on the side? When is it okay for me to do that? And when do I have to stop and think that, ouch, I'm getting into a dilemma here because there could be a conflict of interest? How do I manage these things? I wish I had more time to go into all of these details. So my final words. It may not at first be so clear that only by choosing to act with professional ethics and morals can Africa be turned around? Remember what I said about agriculture without food, schooling without learning, democracy without choice. If we don't have our public officials, politicians, professionals in our society acting ethically, how do we turn this situation around? No one is going to do it for us. It may also not have been so clear that sustainable change can only start from the individual. So we can talk about moral management, ethical leadership, and everything, but it starts with you and your character and your willingness to actually choose good over evil, the right thing over the wrong thing, a good thing over a bad thing. You have to consistently make those choices for sustainable change to begin. And the actions of us all combine to create the norms in our societies. Because we watch what other people are doing, and we suddenly believe that that's what everyone is doing. So we believe everyone is doing it, and we feel we should do it too. And we believe everyone expects us to do it too. And that puts extra pressure on us. So we don't realize that our choosing to do the wrong is actually encouraging someone else to do the wrong. Our choosing to do the right could also put a question mark in the mind of the person who wants to do wrong, because they're seeing you do right instead. So living a life of integrity requires moral courage for us to act as ethical leaders. At the core of it, excellence, morality, integrity, professionalism, and sustainability require the same core values. Two things: doing the right things and doing things right. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure for me to share these few words with you. I hope it will have a period of reflection following this presentation and debate to think about these different dilemmas that we face and whether or not we can be more ethical in our context. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me. And thank you to Kaiser Foundation for inviting me as well. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Can everyone hear me, please? Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So that was another very explosive session, and we are grateful to Mr. Pampa. So I know there are some questions already in the chat section, but we are way over time. We are 36 minutes over time. So please, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat section. Feel free to send us DMs on our social media platform. Please, let's have the links for all our social media platforms so that people can send us their questions directly. We're just going to quickly end the session, but before we go, we'd like to hear a few words from IG, just a few words before we end the session for today. And we would, of course, relay your comments to Mr. Pampa. We're going to let him know, and then probably we'll do an Instagram live with him for 20 minutes or something. I don't know, depending on his schedule. But we'll see how we can have a live session with him again soon. IG, over to you before we close the session for today. You muted yourself again.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Anytime I listen to Soji, you know, I learn something new. And I want to tell you that we all struggle with these ethical decisions. No matter how straight you think you are, you always face situations where you struggle. And Soji has been, Mr. Pampa has been my rock that I lean on. When I have these challenges, I pick up the phone and call him and ask him, what do you think I should do? He's been very helpful. So maybe you need to have that person too, that you bounce things off when you have these ethical challenges. It helps. It does help. And I want to tell you, it's not easy, but then if we need to change Africa, turn Africa around, then we need to, more of us need to start acting like this. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for listening. We look forward to having you tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be wow. Take it from me. Don't miss. Connect on time. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Don't miss it tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to have David Dokun. We're going to have Banky W. And we're going to have Georgia from Amazon. It's going to be an explosive 2 hours, 3 hours. Is it 3? Yes, so 3 hours. An explosive 3 hours tomorrow. So be on time. For those that didn't join today, please let them know so they can join. The Kaiser Foundation team, please, can you put in your connections on the chat so that people can pick them up and connect with you? Yes, all the slides and the recordings will be sent to everyone that attended the sessions. So we're going to do that at the end of the entire soft skills training program. So you will get them. If you have any questions, please put them as well. We'll pick them and send them over to Mr. Pampa. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic afternoon, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow. Bye.